Are you tired of fighting the same old dragons over and over again? Wouldn't you rather fight a new family of dragons? Or better yet, wouldn't you rather play as a new dragon species in your 5e or Pathfinder game? Well, now you can. Roll for Combat, the creators of the incredibly popular Battlezoo Ancestries dragons, have done it again with Battlezoo Secret Dragons. This collection of 4 dragon books introduces new families of dragons to the world of 5e and Pathfinder. Now you can play as, or fight, the dragon you never knew you needed. Inside each book, players will find complete rules for playing as one of these new unique dragons, allowing them to unleash new abilities and powers never seen before. Meanwhile, GMs will find pages of monster stats, allowing you to pit these new creatures against your players. Each book features one new family of dragons filled with extensive, in-depth descriptions of their powers and abilities, background and history information, world lore, illustrations, and more to help you introduce these new dragons into your 5e or Pathfinder games. Experience the world of Battlezoo Secret Dragons through 4 new books. Fairy dragons are connected with the Fey realm and love to play pranks and cause mischief. That is, when they aren't conspiring with the courts of the Fae. Misfit dragons are hot, magical messes of magical energy, constantly shifting their physical forms, phasing in and out of existence, or simply releasing random wild magic effects. They're quite a handful. Leshy dragons are deeply connected to nature, allowing them to grow alongside different types of plants, fungi, and leshies. Oh yeah, and they're master chefs as well. And finally, the powerful battle dragons are obsessed with the thrill of combat. Battle dragons love hunting foes, dueling opponents, or commanding their legions to glorious victory. Head over to kickstarter.rollforcombat.com now to secure your copies of Battlezoo Secret Dragons and become the dragon you were always meant to be.
Hello, everybody. It is I, Stephen Glicker, with Mark Seifter and Brian Walters. Look at that. We have someone new. We're trying to find every single person in TTRPG land and add them to the show. And we are slowly working our way through every company. So, Brian, welcome to Roll for Combat Live. And we're going to talk about dragons, but it's a weird coincidence because we have a dragon Kickstarter and you have a dragon Kickstarter. What were the chances of it? That's pretty insane.
It's like dragons are popular or something.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. I was at Gamma and I was talking to Rico and he had the dragon book out and he's like, oh yeah, we're doing a Kickstarter. I'm like, when's your Kickstarter? He's like, April 2nd. When's your Kickstarter? April 1st. I'm like, okay, I guess they're overlapping. It's like weird coincidence. So
we can cross promote, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what ended up being. We cross promote, might as well. They're very similar but different because you have flower dragons that are fun and beautiful, and ours are like misfit dragons with like robot parts and
The best part is we have leshy dragons, which is a family of 5 dragons attached to plants and fungi, and there's toadstool, arboreal, kelp, harvest, and floral dragon is just literally the name of one of them. So given that we have only 20 dragons and one of the specific dragons is named floral dragon, that's pretty cool that there's also like a whole set of floral dragons coming out at the same time. I think that's synergy.
Either that or we're running out of dragons to make.
I think the feats that we would have for the playable floral dragons in our Leshy Dragons book, probably with some tweaking or maybe not even tweaking, would work if someone lore-wise wanted to play any of the floral dragons from the Hit Point Press book as their PC, because I doubt the feats are going to be so specific that they demand it be a specific kind of flower that you use.
That's true.
That'd be cool. All right, like some cross pollination. Right? There you go.
There you go. That's actually perfect for flowers.
So thanks for joining, Brian. And why don't you tell everyone who you are before we get too deep into it? Because I'll probably forget by the time we're like deep into the news.
Good. As you said, Brian Walters. I am and the art director, event coordinator, and sometimes project manager for Hit Point Press. Another TTV RPG publisher. We're probably best known for like Humblewood, where you get to play as anthropomorphic woodland creatures. Our Big Bad series, which we did on Patreon for several years. And then working with like third-party publishers like Griffin Saddlebags and Sina Una, Lore of Aethera, and yeah, I think that's most of our. Oh, and Fool's Gold, where they get to animate their adventure. So we're working on that campaign setting's coming out soon. So yeah, my job is if you've ever seen us at a convention, I was at the booth in the United States at least, because I'm usually the major representative of the company that's there. And then I also do art direction. So I make sure that the stuff that we're getting from artists looks the way we need it to for the book and the writing to mesh together well.
Yeah, I first ran into you guys. I'm looking. I mean, I have a card. It doesn't have your name on it, but I do have some Humblewood cards. Is that I bumped into you guys at Gen Con maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and we hit it off because Humblewood was very similar to what we do with our products, and then now you have a dragon product, we have a dragon. There's actually a lot of similarities between our projects, which I think, again, just does synergy. So I think the fans of our project, at anything we do, I think Hit Point Press people would like as well, because we have very similar tastes, the same, and even the art style is sort of similar. I have actually all your products here as an aside, so I do like it quite a bit.
I have some of yours. There's a calyx around the other side of this that has all my D&D books on it, and I do have some of your stuff over there too.
See, but it's just well, it's funny because you're one of the only other publishers that doesn't go full grimdark, and a lot of them went grimdark, and we kind of go, I wouldn't say light and fluffy, but we're a lot lighter and have very bright images, and you look at Humblewood, and that's exactly what
Pixar,
Humblewood.
Steven. It's light until it gets real dark, and then you're like, whoa.
Well, that's the Pixar formula. But yes. But my point is, it looks all bright and happy until you read it. Someone was reviewing Jewel of the Indigo Isle, and they're like, oh, this looks like a kid's adventure. And I was like, there's 2 entire chapters with warnings, content warnings. It's not a kid's adventure, trust me.
I mean, it can be a kid's adventure.
It can be.
Because the contents warnings explain to you what you would want to change if you're running it for younger folks. Just like you might want to skip past certain parts of some Pixar films for a young enough kid that are like a little bit iffy.
Because the pictures, it looks so light and fluffy and cute. Like, oh, this is a cute anamorphic adventure. I'm like, no.
And then it's a skin loom.
And there's it's a thing called the skin loom. That's all you need to know. And it gets really, really disgusting. But
Humblewood's similar. When people come up to us at conventions, they're like, "Oh, is this like a kid's adventure?" And I say, you can skew it as adult or as kid themed as you want. Can you run kids through it? For sure. But if you don't, like, there's instances of societal tension that you can go into. Like, you can really emphasize like. One of the main characters is a necromancer. Like, you can go into that as much as you want to. So there are similar, like, it is designed around the front image of the cute fluffy owl guy. Like, he became the face of the company for a reason. But it's one of those, like, adults enjoy playing Humblewood just as much as running kids through it.
Mark, they have an owl guy. We have a parrot guy. That is really weird. There is a lot of similarities between two companies, because that's our unofficial mascot is a pirate parrot. So, wow, that is weird.
Ours is a night owl.
Huh?
Because he's nice. We like puns. The front of the Humblewood book is an owl knight or a night owl, and then a crow necromancer or a neck crowmancer.
Well, here's ours. This is our unofficial mascot.
Pirate parrot guy. Nice.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's funny. I never even thought about that. But yeah, there is a lot of similarities between our works. But yeah, I've also found it easier. I worked a lot in kids with I worked a lot in like Disney and Scholastic and stuff, and you can always take things that are light and cartoony and fun and turn it dark, but you can't go the other way. It's very hard to go the other way. So you might as well start from that point of view and then move it. Because once you go, because you can't take, it's like taking an R-rated movie and making a G. It's very hard to do, but you can turn something light and fluffy into something grim and horrible very quickly if you really wanted to. So, not that we do that, but it's an option. That's all I'm saying. You want options.
Right? It's easier to move that way than it is to go the other way. You're right. Like Heckna, the Insane Clown Carnival campaign setting we did recently would be a lot harder to make it cute and fluffy.
Yeah.
Than it would be to, like, it's body horror, insane clown trying to kill you kind of stuff.
I have that one too. I have that one over here somewhere. Actually, I think that's in my closet. But
where he belongs.
Where it belongs.
That's not where you want a crazy clown to come out of. Like, right? It's just like, it's just gonna come out of my closet with a knife.
I'm used to it.
He has a giant hammer called Punchline.
There you go. That's actually pretty. That's something like I would do. That is right up there. It's very similar. The only difference is where you guys are in Canada and I'm in America. That's where the differences end, right there.
Right? Except for me, I'm still in the States.
Except for you, you're right in the States. So, with that, we talk about news and little topics. And boy, Mark can't wait. I'm going to let Mark talk about this topic because he couldn't wait to talk about it. And it seems like everyone on Earth is talking about this topic, and I didn't even notice it. And looking on my news feeds, it's all over my news feeds. I still ignored it.
You didn't notice it until I brought it up. And I think it's going to be a good topic because Steven has a different perspective than everybody else.
So different.
This is the news. The thing that got into big news is that Dimension 20 is, which for those of you who don't know, is probably the second most popular actual play after Critical Role. Those two are generally the top two. Is performing in Madison Square Garden, and even before the like normal tickets open during pre-order, it completely sold out, and tickets have gone up to $2,300. Due to just, surge pricing, platinum pricing, scalping, whatever you want to call the process of how those kind of tickets go, which is so much money for a ticket to see an actual play. It's more than Taylor Swift concerts, and it is just kind of fascinating for a tabletop role-playing actual play to be up there in that amount to me.
All right, so I'm looking this up. Okay, so a few things. I'll tell you why it didn't even hit my radar. A few reasons. One, there's two parts to Madison Square Garden. Okay, there's the garden itself, and there's also a stage area. And the stage area is kind of hidden, but that's like where Sesame Street Live is. That's where a lot of the plays are. And heck, even Comic-Con. And when Comic-Con comes here, they rent out that space. Because it's an actual stage. It's not like the globe, oval of the garden itself, like where they play basketball and stuff. But it looks like they're actually rented out Madison Square Garden. So it looks like it's going to be in the garden proper. It's not going to be on the stage. So that's impressive. And so the way it works is that anyone could rent out Madison Square Garden. You can, I can, anyone. It just costs money. So what you do is you call them up, you say, I want to rent out the garden. They go, sure, $250,000 or whatever it costs. And then you got to pay all the insurance and, everything else. And then that's it. You just pay them. And then you can then do whatever you want. You can sell out tickets. You can perform. You can, rent it out for a party. Whatever you want to do with it, it's yours for that evening. I actually rented out City Field for my son's bar mitzvah. So I actually do have familiarity with this because I know exactly what it took. And it was awesome, by the way. Oh my God, it was so freaking cool. Anyhow, you can't do it. You could just, do this. So once you do that, you set the price to whatever you want. Now in New York, people, I heard like this cheapest ticket for this, like with $300, $400, $500. That's called a ticket. Okay. I went to go see the Harry Potter show, and these were not even the best seats. These were just like, the Harry Potter, what is it, that chamber, so whatever that's the 2-part show was. Each ticket, and this was like 7-8 years ago, was $250 per ticket. And then there was 2 parts to the show. So you had to spend $2,000 for a family of 4 to see Harry Potter, part 1 and part 2, for just a regular seat. Let alone if you got the good seats, which were like $800. So when you say, oh, it's so expensive, I'm like, that's what it costs. That's in New York. You're welcome to New York. Like, that's the price of a ticket. If you're going to go see something, you're going to spend a couple $100. It's just that simple. Now, I guess, compared to the rest of the...
$2,300 is more than a couple hundred,
but
Steven.
That's what's
a factor of 10.
Right. But, and you have one show to blame for this. It's called Hamilton. So I saw Hamilton the third night it was open. I saw it the third night. Now I see everything. I'm one of those theater people. I think this has come up on the show before. And we paid, I believe it was like, and we had front row center. And I think our tickets were like maybe $150. Okay. And that was about where tickets were. Hamilton came out about 10 years ago. And then Hamilton exploded and sold out forever. And then so they said, supply and demand. So now those same tickets, the next time I went to go see it, were $850 for those exact same seats that I got for $150 were now $850 per ticket. And all the other seats were then, and that was like, so front row, and the way it works is like front row is 800, then it's like goes to 400, then the top are like 250, because they can get it. And it stinks. It's like, okay, it's $2,000. Guess what? They're getting it. If that's what it costs, they're very good. They have it all figured it out. It's crazy because there's some tickets at $2,300. And they will sell them. My friend, we were talking about Taylor Swift before this. I have a friend who's really into music. Like, this is what his big thing is. He's also a huge geek. He saw Taylor Swift all 3 nights when she was in New York, and he could reach out his arm and touch her. Okay, his pictures were like, because she had this walkout stage, he was there. He was next to the stage. That's how close he was. I don't even want to know what that cost him, because he went all 3 nights, and all 3 of his nights, he was within 5 rows of the stage. I'm sure he probably spent 10 grand. But you know what? He liked it so much, he went 3 times. So, you know what? There's people out there who will do this, and they'll pay that much money. It's a rare commodity, and they know what they're doing. Also, keep in mind, if they sell, so let's just say there's 1,000 seats for $2,300, and then they have another 1,000 seats for $500. If they only sell 20% of those seats, they're still making $2,300. They made so much money on those few seats. What do they care? They just need to sell a couple of them, not all of them. It's no different than the highest levels of a Kickstarter, if you think about it. I mean, if you want to go that direction of like supply and demand and what you're giving them, some people will get that and they'll pay for it. I don't know. I'm rambling on here. I can keep going, but what do you guys think?
Well, we talked about it a little bit, but like for me, it's still just the mental incongruity of it's a D&D game that people are paying to go see. There's a difference between Taylor Swift and you mentioned comedians. So I've been to see George Carlin a whole bunch of times. I was front row I wasn't in New York City, but I think I only paid $100 to $150 per ticket.
Mm-hmm.
That was the show right before, he passed away. But I've been to a whole bunch of comedian shows. I've been to Eric Clapton, the Eagles, bands. And it's like tickets were expensive, but they weren't that. And again, like I said, I've never been to a New York show, so I get where there's a different perspective apparently to that. But it's just the idea that it's a D&D game that people are paying to go see, I think is great. Mm-hmm. But it's also just kind of like, high school me would have no idea what that is. Like D&D is so popular, people are paying $2,300 a ticket to go see people play a game in person.
Yeah, no, I believe it. It's the thing is like, look, if you're going to be in New York, they must have done their homework, and they might, because they had to make sure they made their money back. The other thing is that I guarantee that half, if not more than half, of those tickets are being bought up by scalpers, and it doesn't matter if the ticket. So, okay, I'm the person who's selling the tickets to see the show. Okay, I'm Dimension 20. They make no money on the scalping. All they're trying to do is, if they have 20,000 tickets, they're just trying to sell 20,000 tickets. The aftermarket means nothing to them. And they obviously did their homework figuring out that there's enough demand that the scalpers will buy up all these tickets and then sell them at whatever they sell them at. So Dimension 20 doesn't care. Like, a Dimension 20 is like, okay, did we sell 20,000 tickets? Yes. Okay, well, we made our money back. Now, of course, they want more people to show up because they really make their money on the merchandising. And obviously, if only 10,000 people show up, they can't make as much money in merchandising as opposed to the full 20,000. So they do want everyone to show up. But the main source of revenue, which is the ticket sales, they only get the ticket sales once. So, and they obviously knew what they were doing. On top of that, there is Glass Cannon. And Glass Cannon has been touring the country and performs in New York all the time. And they sell out all the time. And they sell out
for 2,300?
No, but they put on a show like every 2 weeks. And they're at the Beacon Theater. And let me tell you, the Beacon Theater ain't cheap. Okay? It's not Madison Square Garden, but it's like one step down. It's not even 2 steps down. It's 1 step. Okay? The Beacon Theater is freaking expensive. So it's not like they're in this hole in the wall in the middle of nowhere. Like, they're renting out real places. And that's just, I'm not as surprised as maybe you guys are, just because it's been happening for the last couple of years. And, I think, it's just enough people will come to New York and see them. And I guess they have enough fans, so who knows?
I guess it's a first for the TTRPG industry that it's that high, and that it went above Taylor Swift, made it seem newsworthy to a lot of people.
Oh no, I believe it, but also Taylor Swift, it did not go above Taylor Swift. It went, one show went to the same levels as Taylor Swift.
I'm not saying that it's more popular than Taylor Swift.
Right, it's not.
Obviously not.
No.
The price went above the price of her tour, which was also got news for being expensive.
But keep in mind, Critical Role sold out Wembley Stadium in London. True. And they sold that out in like 12,000 people. And that already went live. You could see the pictures. And that sold out like in 8 minutes or something insane. So again, they're like, oh, well, what do you know? We got the people. And the good news is they're doing their own promotion. See, that's the advantage of these things, is that if you have a very popular podcast, you can promote yourself in your own podcast. They don't even need to buy ads. Think about it. They don't need to buy ads. They don't need to do anything.
You can promote yourself in your own stream or podcast? Really?
Yes.
Oh, by the way, check out the Secret Dragons Kickstarter on kickstarter.rollforcombat.com.
Yes, please do. I totally forgot to post that in there. There's also Sleep No More. Do you guys know about Sleep No More in New York City?
Sleep No More?
So Sleep No More is an interactive film noir Macbethian experience that is been going on. It's kind of D&D-esque. It's hard to explain, but basically you walk through and you wear a mask and you're not allowed to talk. And throughout the entire venue, and it's like 4 or 5 stories, it's enormous. They put on a show and you watch it while you're there. And this has been going on for 12, 13 years. And they put on a show every single day except Tuesday. And some days they put on 2 shows. I think they put on 8 shows a week. Look it up. This has been going on for like 13, 14 years. And these tickets are hundreds of dollars. So if something like that, which is very D&D-esque, has been going on for over 10 plus years in New York City, there's an audience, because it's actually closing for the final time. It's been extended every month I saw this maybe 2013 when it first opened, 2012. It's still going, and then now they finally, it's actually ending May 27th. They keep saying final extension. I thought it was supposed to end in April. Now it's ending in May. I'm like, it's never end. They keep saying it's never gonna end. I'm like, anyhow, look it up.
Yeah, it seems to say you're moving through rooms where they are without words, doing certain like Macbeth themed 1930s.
It's really cool
version, and then you wear masks and stay quiet as you move through the area.
It started in 2011. 8 days a week, sells out every single show, $100 a ticket. I would have never thought that something like this would ever do this well. So there's an audience in New York. I wouldn't be surprised. And there's a new D&D show that just opened up in New York. That I'm actually gonna go watch it. That's off Broadway. That's that interactive show where you, it's like half improv, half D&D. I forgot what it's called, but anyhow.
Apparently in Shanghai they did a Sleep No More that combined Macbeth with Chinese folk myths in 2016.
Yeah. Well, there's no talking. There's no talking in any part of it. The actors don't talk. You don't talk. No one can talk. And it's hard. It's very hard to explain. There's probably videos on it you can watch. It's really cool because the actors walk through, and then there's these pre-made scenes with music and lights, and it's weird. I can't explain. Oh, and yeah, like people are walking around naked all the time. It's really out there. And there's big fight scenes. That's the coolest one. There's a huge fight scene, like right in the middle of an alley, and you're there, and then they push you out of the way so you don't get hit. But they take like a door, and they threw the door down. I was like, wow, what's going on, man? It's really cool. I think I've seen it 3 times. The only thing is it's hot as hell. I remember that. Every time I went, it was like sweating my brains out. It was really hot there. Anyhow, you got another topic, Mark?
I think that's really the main.
That's it.
The main news topic for this week. There wasn't a huge ton of things that were happening.
I'm trying to see if there's anything else.
I mean, other than our Kickstarters.
Yeah.
Other than our Kickstarters.
I mean, our Kickstarters are pretty cool. Those are newsworthy.
Right?
By the way, people like I do like Glass Cannon. Glass Cannon, hey, they're local. They're like all New Yorkers. I've actually never seen one of their shows live, but I've seen them on YouTube. I've seen them after, but I have not seen one of their shows live. Thing is, their shows continue because they're actually playing an actual play. So if you watch their shows, it just picks up where they last left off. So you're always in the middle. It's like a serial. You're like always. What do you think of? So everyone had their April Fool's things. What do you think of the Starfinder April Fool's prank where they're selling the blank book, an actual book filled with 160 pages that are blank? It's a 160-page book with a cover and nothing. That's it, because it's The Gap, and it's $15.
And all information about The Gap, according to Canon, was like deleted from people's minds, from all records, from everywhere. So as far as we know, maybe it used to include the information, but the magic of The Gap deleted that. So it's therefore blank. I think that's pretty hilarious. I like it for an April Fool's thing. Given that we at Roll for Combat like putting out April Fool's products, they made it a physical product and they made it work.
They did. I know. I actually showed it up in my box because I get an email whenever something shows up at Paizo, and they're like, it's like in your inbox now, The Gap, and I'm like, and then I was like, should I download it? Because it's literally just a PDF that's just blank. So I was like, it's a cover with nothing else. I haven't downloaded it yet, but I was like, maybe I will. I don't know.
I can dream that that's a long-term viral campaign where at some point something will happen and it turns out there's like an invisible ink on the pages or something. There's actually something printed on it.
Just put lemon juice, the old lemon juice. Right?
Just something where it's like, okay, or that PDF, suddenly like the PDF is filled with content like at a certain date. I know that's not doable, but that would be to me would be an amazing viral campaign. if they figured out, okay, we're going to reveal the gap information on this date, and then bam, everybody gets stuff.
That would be genius if they could do it. I think it was pretty good. Like of all their April Fools ones, that's one of the better ones, especially because they actually had the books coming out, and you could actually buy them. So
Yep.
Because that's what I need is another book taking up space in literally a book of nothing. So there you go. There's no art. It's like just a cover. And even the art, it just says The Gap. It's actually quite funny. Anyhow, I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Did Hit Point Press do anything for April Fools?
We didn't share anything internally, to my knowledge. I think we were all really nose down on trying to get Floral Dragons up and running.
Wow.
So I don't think we really had time to be like, hey, let's do an April Fool's joke. I know an artist that we've worked with, Ryan Pancoast, is trying to made a book, like an art book joke. And like so many people have professed interest, he's actually looking for a publisher. Just as another one of those, like, hey, it actually, an April Fool's joke that might actually become a physical product.
All of our April Fool's jokes become physical products, or at least one of them. Not this actually one of three have become physical products, and the third one will probably become a physical product as well.
The second one, I don't think. I don't think that we need to do a physical product for reincarnating yourself into a fantasy world with cheat special abilities. But it is
anime.
What? Yeah, it's
like the isekai anime.
Yeah, it's definitely an isekai situation. It's Battlezoo Otherworlders. You can play as a reincarnator or someone who was summoned, and then you can roll on the D100s to see if your power is the ability to have a +1 on diplomacy checks, which is like an F rank cheat, or the ability to instantly kill everything that opposes you before you even are aware of them, which is like double S rank.
Well, we did. So 2 years ago, we did on April Fools, you can play a dungeon, an actual dungeon, and that became official, and that's being printed because it was so popular. Last year we did Isekai, and this year we did Fusions, where you get to play. Well, why don't you explain it, Mark? Because Mark wrote it.
Well, it's the plural of you. You and all your friends, or some number of friends, can work together to play a Hydra, a Cerberus, or a two-headed giant that has multiple characters in one body. And so that's why they're fusions.
Just Voltroning together.
Yes, you are Voltroning. And then
there's even literally a let's split up gang feat that lets you split into separate, like your Hydra splits into 4 just kind of big serpents with one head, and then they can fuse back together into the Hydra.
So for April Fools, you can download it now for free. It has full rules for Pathfinder for 5e. It has a path builder file. It has tokens. It has animated tokens. There's a free Foundry module for Pathfinder, a free Foundry module for 5e, and Alchemy has a free module for 5e as well. So we launched our Kickstarter the same day. So we were a little nuts here.
We released Gargoyles on the same day. That was a painful day, but we did it.
Yes, we released 6 things on one day. Well, actually more than 6. It was like 10 things on April 1st. So last week was a little crazy, but we got it all done. But April 1st is turning out to be a very busy day for us every single year.
Yeah, it's a big one on the Roll for Combat calendar, unlike for most other companies, I guess. But I'm sure it was huge for Hit Point too, since you had the April 2nd Kickstarter.
April 2nd Kickstarter. I think we had one like last year. We had a Kickstarter come out at the same time. The Big Bad booklet, collected book was around the same time. So beginning of April was a lot of nose down. We need to get this right, kind of thinking. So I don't think we did anything for April Fools this year.
So don't forget, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. And
I've seen one question in chat that asked us how we use NPC stat blocks in our games.
Well, do we have? They said, Mark and Steven, how do you have NPC stat blocks in your games? I don't have a ton of time to make stat blocks for specific NPCs, but sometimes the GMG doesn't have what I need. It's not really, so I think it's a combination of how and do we. And the answer is yes. in the adventure in Jewel the Indigo Isle, we have, and in Jewel the Indigo Isle, we have actual specific stat blocks for some NPCs. But generally, we don't. And what we'll often do is we'll give their level, an outline of who and what they are.
It's called a micro stat block in publishing.
Okay, micro stat block. I did not even know that. So
yeah, those are usually called a micro stat block when they just have the very most basic information.
Right.
We don't know which of those 50 NPCs your team is going to murder or
latch onto or
latch onto.
Right.
And so we give you enough so that you could build it. Using the creature creation rules in GM Core or the Game Mastery Guide, either one. Or wait a minute, yes, that's where it is for in both cases. Either one is going to give you exactly what you need. Also, if you're looking for NPC stats or you want to like quickly get some kind of statistics for something, you can always sort of just like put a fresh coat of paint palette swap over an NPC that you already have. Like if you have ones for a farmer that's throwing an apple, it could also be one for like somebody who is throwing a bowling ball at people. And the apple is pretty damaging considering that it's an apple. You could sort of, do a palette swap on an NPC. Even like Battlezoo Eldamon sort of has statistics for 1,080 sets of statistics that are sort of hidden in the text because it has 20 levels for 54 different Eldamon stat blocks. So if you need like a fire using NPC or like a water using or some elemental one, you could just use Eldamon stats as a starting point to add more maximum hit points. Or a creature stat. If you have someone who's like strong and big, you could just use an ogre stat block for them potentially.
Yeah. I mean, I usually don't put in, I used to put in stat blocks, but I'll tell you what we do is I have pictures. I think pictures are more important.
You have pictures for every NPC, and it's become a meme in our group when I'm running it, where I was like, all right, guys, it's time to talk to this herder who's herding herd animals, Kuranda. So do you think there's a picture of her in this book? And they were like, yes, because there's a picture of everyone. I was like, no, there's two pictures of her. Here's the first picture. And then she's like, okay, I'm going to put on my hat. And then I show the second picture that's on the next page.
That was an accident. I accidentally ordered two pieces of art, but because they looked so freaking good, I had to include them. And the second piece of art looks exactly like Jess.
Like Jessica?
It looks exactly like Jessica Redikoff. Like even the mouth, like the way she holds her mouth, it's creepy how they look identical. And even she's like, that looks just like me. I'm like, I know. Isn't that weird? It really looks like her.
Yes, it does. So sometimes it happens. We had like an NPC in the Game Mastery Guide who looked like one of the editors at Paizo. And it was like, we asked, we were like, did anyone like put this editor in as a reference for this picture? We asked everyone, and like, no, nobody did. It just does.
I know, that was weird. I don't know where that came from, but it looks so much like her that I had to include it because I was just like, and the art was so good. But so I find it better because we have art for every single NPC that I can think of. Because I'd rather have art, especially because I play so much on VTTs. I can fake a fight. Or I can fake an NPC. I can even fake a fight with an NPC if I had to. That's easy to do. You can fake stats because you don't need that many stats. You can fake everything with NPCs, but you can't fake art. Not easily, not quickly. So, and you kind of always want I like the art to be representative of what they're seeing because, like, if you're like, oh, you're talking to a little boy. And I have a picture of an old man, it's like, that's not a little boy. And then it derails the session. They're spending like 10 minutes making jokes because the art doesn't match. I'm like, okay, And then if you make the art good enough, people are so distracted by the art that you can just, murder them. They don't even know it happened. You're like, what? I'm too distracted by this art. It's so beautiful. So there you go. So at least
you heard it live on the stream. Steven distracts people with art and then murders them.
It's in game. In game. That's how it works. So actually Kurth wrote a question, and I'll have both of us. Why don't you answer it first, Brian? With con season almost here, what cons are you going to? Or what cons are you looking forward to? Because we're talking about this before the stream, what cons you're going to.
Yeah.
It brings us like everything.
We go to a few. Last year we did PAX East, Origins, Gen Con, and PAX Unplugged. This year, unfortunately, I can't make it to Origins due to some other events happening around the same time. But we're doing PAX East. We just did PAX East. We did Gamma right before that. Although we did Gamma last year, but I didn't go to that one. So Gamma, PAX East. Canada plays, which is like Gamma in Canada, apparently. And then Gen Con, and then PAX Unplugged. And I'll be going to an illustrators convention, an illustrator workshop in Milwaukee in June, and I staff for an illustrators convention in Reading, Pennsylvania in October, called IX Arts. I think that's, and then I might be going to some MagicCon events to talk about thingamajigs, our magic card storage solution stuff. But we probably won't be there as a vendor.
So I am going. I have a love-hate relationship with vending, and I won't get into it, but it's because it's really just me and Mark. And if I have a booth, it's like then you got to set it up, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to have a booth. So I haven't really been a booth person that much recently, but I'm starting to maybe think about doing it. But I do a lot of talks. That I do. And I bring my books with them and just sell them after the talks. It seems to work just fine. So I seem to do that quite a bit. So I'm going to be at Origins, and I'm doing Origins, and I'm going to be probably doing 2 talks at Origins. It just came in today, so I don't have it, but one will be Friday, one will be Saturday. I'm not exactly sure, but when it happens, I'll give out the information, and I think I'm doing them with Kelsey Dion from Shadow Dark and a few other people. At Gen Con, I go to Gen Con, actually everyone goes to Gen Con, and we are going to be having games at Gen Con. This is the first time we're doing this. I think we're having something like 40 games, and it's going to be Jewel of the Indigo Isle with different pre-made NPCs. It'll be like the first chapter of Jewel of the Indigo Isle for either Pathfinder or 5e. And so we're going to have something like 40 games of that you'll be able to sign up for. I will probably do some talks. I always do some talks at Gen Con. I just haven't signed up or done any yet. And what else do I do? I go to PAX Unplugged because it's right here. We might have a booth. I think they're totally sold out. So put it this way, if I can do a booth at PAX Unplugged, I will. If not, I'll definitely be there. And last year was really good. PAX Unplugged has been uneven, but last year was pretty good. It's a very uneven convention, but I think they're finally getting their footing. Last year was like they're probably the biggest one. And then
PAX Unplugged is probably our best convention out of the year consistently.
Yeah.
Just because it's so close to the holidays.
Yeah, it actually it's gotten better. Well, it was weird when it first started. Because it started and it was small and they didn't know exactly what they wanted to be, and it was kind of a mess. And it wasn't like super popular. And then COVID happened. And now it's like it finally got its footing. Because I went to it last year was good. 3 years ago it was like but I was still during COVID and it was like kind of a mess. And it was like it was fine, but I didn't love it. But now it seems to be doing really well. I don't think I'll be able to get a booth. But there's a new one called the Philly Area Gaming Expo page, which was just started last year. It's in January. And I went, Professor Dungeon Master went, Brian Gillespie went. It was actually a fair number of people. This year, it's the second year, and he's got a who's who of people going to this thing. It's like everyone's going to it's a ton of people going to this thing. I'm going, Professor Dungeon Master's going. Let's see who else is going. He has, let's see, David Johnson's going. He's got Ben Riggs is going. Let's see who else. It's insane. The list is insane. I don't know how he got everyone to go to this thing, but like everyone's going to this convention. I know Ben Milton's going. Bob Worldbuilder's going. It's a big convention, so it's only the second year. And last year was 1,000 people. It was like 1,000-person convention. So in 1 year, he went from 1,000 people to like nothing to this. Speaking of conventions, I went to an interesting convention. I went to Long Island Tabletop Gaming Expo 2024. And it was this like very small convention. It was in an air and space museum. How about that for a pretty cool place to have a convention? It actually was pretty fun because there was like all the game tables were in the museum. So you'd be right next to like a 1950s biplane, and we were playing Shadow Dark next to a biplane. And it was like pretty cool. I just wanted to talk about it because this was interesting. 2 parts. First, that was my first time ever playing Shadow Dark. And I will say that the hype is real because it was so much fun. I couldn't believe it. Actually felt like playing D&D. Like now I see why this thing is really doing well, which is only weird because I've asked Kelsey to run it for me 100 times and she never does, which bothers me. I'm going to force her to run it for me at Origins because I want Kelsey to freaking run her own game for me. But I was texting her throughout the game, and my character, Mark, if anyone was watching the stream right now who was playing with me, my character made it to 2nd level. Okay, Mark? I have a fighter. My rolling was so good. You know how I rolled 8? You roll 1d8 for hit points. I got an 8. So I had 11 hit points. I had an 18 strength. And you roll for this. And then I got to level 2. I rolled my hit points. I got another 8. I only failed 2 rolls the entire Shadow Dark session. That's it.
Wow.
People couldn't believe it, how well I was rolling. And even Kelsey Roby, she's like, roll high. I said, this game is too easy. I literally ran out of room because I got so much junk. And now she's like, never get rid of that character. This character is going to live forever. So at least I got a level 2 character out of Shadow Dark.
She'll kill you at Origins now.
Yeah, she probably will. But I have +1 battle axe, a spear, a sword. I got so much stuff. And this was an official adventure. So I think that's the secret. It's got to make it through the first freaking level because now I'm like decked out. So I think I'll hopefully make it to level 3. But Shadow Dark's freaking good. It was a lot of fun. You know what was interesting about the convention, though?
What?
Is that everyone there, because I've been going to conventions my whole life, I feel like this is the 3rd or 4th generation because there's a lot of people there from college. So I'm like, this isn't even like 1 generation removed from, these are 2 generations removed from me. I feel like you guys are 1 generation removed. Though it's 2 generations removed. And it was going strong. And I was looking around thinking, man, I would go to conventions. There was a convention near me every month. There was a comic book convention. They had gaming there when I was in the 80s in high school. And it was all guys, it was like all white guys, every so often you'd see someone there. The reason the convention was there is because it was in New York, so everyone from Marvel and DC would come, and you get a lot of artists who was like selling their work. Like one thing you can get is like they would literally draw you right then and there, like famous. Think about this, like famous comic book artists, looking for money would draw pictures of you, kind of like you would do it like a boardwalk. And back then it was like $20, which actually was a lot back then. That's like probably $50-$60 now. And they would draw pencil, not ink, do pencil for you of you or your favorite character, and then give it to you on actual artboard. And it was pretty cool. I have a couple of them. And I remember going to those all the time, and it was just like My mom would drop me off at like 11. I'd stay there till 5. It was like some Holiday Inn, and it was like all guys. And then I went to this one, and it's just a mixture of every type of person you can imagine and all ages, and it was great. And I'm like, wow, this hobby is still alive and well. And then even when I was saying like PAX Unplugged is packed. And it is a wide range of people at that one. I mean, I think all of them are, but PAX Unplugged is one of the weirder, one of the more diverse ones, I'd say, even for these gaming conventions, just because of the location. But the hobby is going strong. It's just amazing how this hobby just still's going, and there's all these people all excited. And the people who I was playing with, the DM, it was his first time ever DMing, and there was this guy next to me. It was his first convention ever. There was a woman next to me. It was her first convention ever because her boyfriend brought her. And she had her new dice. They glowed in the dark, and she was like rolling them. She was excited. She got to use her glow in the dark dice, and I was just like, wow, this convention, I'm playing a game with like have more than half the table. This is their very first convention ever. So it's kind of neat. I don't know. It's just nice to see the hobby still going on. So,
all right. Well, shall we get into our main topic of would D&D have succeeded without dragons? So, dungeons and something else. I'm going to propose for this one two counterfactuals: dungeons and dwarves and dungeons and demons. But before we dive into that, I want to think about this, because we all know what dungeons are now. And we think of them as not just being like a prison for like a medieval castle or something, but this sort of concept that even makes it into like dungeon fantasy subgenres, where a dungeon is this monster treasure and trap filled like special area. Sometimes they're like extra dimensional. Sometimes monsters spawn in them like automatically if you're kind of lit RPG. And that all is because Dungeons and Dragons were popular. But back when it was starting, people did not have that association with dungeons already. So we need to remember that when we're thinking about this. So the dungeons half of the equation is not providing us that value that it does now because of Dungeons and Dragons. We're launching with, let's say, Dungeons and Demons or Dungeons and Dwarves, which I think each present a separate problem for our brand if we're back in 1974 and we're launching with one of those two names.
Well, did they have other names that they were considering? I don't remember.
I don't know. But I'm gonna change it like that, so it's still like a D&D and it's still the same format, and it's mostly the same with as few changes as possible, other than removing dragons from the name, which is obviously a high strong thing to include.
Because it was originally named, it was based off the game Chainmail, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
It was based off the war game Chainmail.
Right. And that became Dungeons and Dragons. Right. So
we could, I guess, suppose that it was called like Chainmail Tactical Role Playing Game as another counterfactual possibility, right? The licensed Chainmail role playing game made by the same creator of the Chainmail war game.
I mean, I like the supposition there. I mean, I don't think either of them would have done nearly as well. I mean, there's a fantastical element to a dragon that neither of those can really do. So, like, one of my favorite things when I used to teach art was when I would talk to kids, I'd be like, I'm describing a large lizard-esque creature with wings that probably breathes fire. What am I describing? And they'd be like, a dragon. I was like, have any of you ever seen a dragon in person? They're like, no. They're like, you can't. Every dragon you've ever seen is from somebody's imagination. I mean, theoretically, you can say the same thing for a dwarf, for dwarves, the fantastical creature, and demons. But I mean, like, like someone could dress up as a demon or someone could dress up like a dwarf. You can't necessarily dress up like a dragon. You could make a big animatronic one, but like it's a lot harder to see that. And then you're also like, that's a piece of art that's being created. So like, there's just a fantastical element. And again, I'm coming at this from the art angle because that's what I do. But there's a level of fantasy to that that neither of the other two really grab in my opinion, or that have that much history to them. Because I mean, and that bridge across cultures.
I think that art angle is also true in like the folklore and writing side. Dragons always seem to symbolize like power and danger, and some people
dragons, right?
Yeah, some people hypothesize that visual of them across so many different cultures may be the fact that they can fly, even though they don't always have wings, but they can fly. They're kind of serpentine. Maybe it's a combination of like, you know, humanity's memory of dangerous predators such as birds and reptiles that would come after them, that kind of combined into this one like super threat. And obviously that's just kind of anthropologists making something up that sounds kind of interesting, but it still sounds kind of interesting.
Well, what about tunnels and trolls?
Well, I mean, that was already kind of named after Dungeons & Dragons was, so it picked up on the knock-on effect of people knew about Dungeons & Dragons, so they know about these other names with parallelism.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dungeons and Demons actually is a catchy name, and the demons do have a place in the zeitgeist. The problem with that one, which I think is different than the problem with Dungeons and Dwarves, is Dungeons and Demons would have made it even more vulnerable to the satanic panic. Dungeons and Devils would too, than Dungeons and Dragons was, because it would be like, this game, Dungeons and Demons, is telling people to do stuff with demons, and people, oh no, it's not. Of course, Dungeons and Demons doesn't have you worshiping demons. It's like, really? It's called Dungeons and Demons. So I think that could have been like potentially an issue for it early on. Whereas Dungeons and Dwarves, I think, has the issue that like dwarves are kind of interesting, but I don't think they're catchy or interesting enough. And since dungeons hadn't been popularized as this like sort of monster infested place, it's just like, why do I care about jail and like Snow White? Like what's going on here? And so I think that, and chainmail probably would have been even worse because it doesn't have the alliteration. It's just the name of some kind of armor, which was arguably even like mostly called mail without the word chain in front of it back in the day. And like everyone been like, what is this? It's called chainmail.
Yeah, no, chainmail's not nearly as catchy. And like you said, the alliteration of Dungeons and Dragons works really well. And I mean, like, and again, thinking about like, if you're looking at like, again, I could going back to like cover art. If you look at the original books, like characters versus a dwarf don't really sound as interesting as character versus a demon or a character versus a dragon. But like, I agree with you, the whole satanic panic that happened where everyone's like, you're worshiping Satan, would have been way worse given any imagery or naming that would have happened from either demons or devils.
See, I don't know. I'm always like, see, it's impossible, because people are always like, well, what happens if this didn't happen or this did happen? It's like, well, it's impossible to know that because we can't talk about hypotheticals because who knows? It's it's like there was 1,000.
We can try to guess. It's a fun game.
Well, no, it's a fun game. But
I'll
give you an example that was big when I was a kid. So it's kind of lost its luster in the last 10 years because of Disney. But before Disney bought Star Wars could do no wrong. Star Wars was, and I'm talking about the original. And if you think about it, it's like they rolled a natural 20 on everything. It's like the acting, the story, the names, the music, the special effects. Like it just had, it's not like it had one or two good things. It was like, okay, here's 20 categories and they hit every single one out of the park. And it just became like, it was just everything about that movie and the universe was insane to the point that, think about it. I mean, it's over 50 years and we still talk about it. It's majorly in the zeitgeist. So they hit everything just right. And I think they just hit everything just right. It's like if they called it Dungeons and Dwarves, we would not be talking about it today. we just wouldn't. They just happened for, whether luck or who knows what, that they came across a very good name. there was like no market research back then to this extent there is today. There was no like polling and figuring out. It just wasn't the same. It was like just come up with a name and hope it works and hope it sticks. And they hit it. Like they got the perfect name. D&D, it's easy to say, it's very memorable, it's evocative. They just got it, you know. It was a 10 out of 10. It wasn't even 10 out of 10, it was a 20 out of 10. I mean, it was as perfect as can be. And it did not hurt that it also came out at a time where fantasy was starting to get popular in literature, where The Hobbit, I remember I was talking about The Hobbit, and, you know, fantasy was becoming a little bit more mainstream. And I know the Satanic Panic was as big as people think it was. It was bigger, man. It was so big when I was a kid. And that just made us want to play it more. I mean, where I lived, I've heard people whose parents did not let them play D&D. I had parents who, you know, friends who grew up very Catholic or very religious, and they were like not allowed to do pretty much. It wasn't just D&D, by the way. I had a neighbor, a friend of mine. They didn't even have a television in their house. Okay, forget about D&D. And he never saw a movie. He never saw a TV. You know, like everything he read or did had to be approved by his parents. And, you know, this existed. I have a friend of mine who I went to college with. Her parents were so strict that when she went to college, she never saw a movie. Ever. Not once. Never saw a movie. And never saw a television show. Which was very fun, because whenever I went to go see a movie with her, you were guaranteed she never saw it. And it was always the first time. So you could show her, it's like, oh, you never saw Star Wars? You never saw Raiders of the Lost Ark? You never saw Jaws? It's like you could just show her everything, because she was like the first time. It was actually quite fascinating. So, you know, there are people out there who are very, very restricted. And it was, you know, a time where that was sort of taboo, and there was a lot of pushback, because I have friends who were playing D&D. My parents couldn't care less, but some of my friends, they had to sneak out to play, like with us, because their parents would not have approved. And it wasn't something we talked about if we went. We never played at their house or brought over D&D or talked about it, because we know their parents would not approve it. I don't think they would have banned it for the religious reasons. I actually think they would have banned it because they thought it was a waste of time, to be honest, as opposed to, oh, you're worshiping Satan by playing D&D. They're like, nah, they just think it was stupid and you shouldn't waste your time on sitting around rolling dice and playing this silly game. That was the other thing, so... Labyrinth Lord. Oh yeah, there's Labyrinth Lord. There's Tunnels and Trolls. Like after that, everyone was starting to do the blank and blank naming convention. So it was just like they hit that one thing and no one managed to do it. No one managed to come up with the same name. So, you know, and to this day, it's still, it's out there forever. I mean, it's like, the funny thing is, it's probably going to last longer than D&D ever does. Like, because one day, whether it'll be 50 years or 100 years from now, it's sort of like the computer mouse, or Xerox, or data. Like, these are all words that were invented for a very specific purpose or a name brand, and the reason for those names are long gone, but the word still remains. So I think the same thing. It's like, whatever I try to explain people, it's like, oh, what are you playing? I'm like, well, I'm playing this game called Pathfinder, and, you know, it's kind of like, you know, D&D, and they're just looking at me like I'm like, you know, have two heads. So instead, I'm just like, do you know Dungeons and Dragons? They're like, oh yeah. I'm like, I'm playing that, even though I'm not. You know, I'm not playing D&D. I'm like, I'm playing Pathfinder, but I'm like, yeah, it's like D&D. That's all you need to know. You know, it's becoming shorthand for a whole culture and genre of gaming, even if that's not what you're playing. So that's how mainstream it's become. But really, it comes down to, so could D&D have survived without the dungeon? And I don't think it would have survived without dragons, like if it was Dungeons and Demons. But how about Demons and Dragons?
I think that would not only survive, it could move to Sweden and become super popular.
Oh, there you go. So maybe they did miss out. Maybe they should have called it Demons and Dragons instead.
Well, it could have had the Satanic Panic issue with demons, but I think it wouldn't have needed dungeons. I think that my personal opinion, which we don't know because we can't actually live out the counterfactual, is that the word dungeons was good for alliteration, so it was a good choice, but that it was pulled up by the bootstraps of the dragons and entered the cultural cachet because of Dungeons and Dragons, and that it wasn't all the way there on its own.
Dangers and Dragons, right?
There you go.
Daggers and Dragons. I don't know.
I'm trying to think.
Diamonds and dragons.
Well, there's deities and demigods. That's another one that still has.
Oh, it could be deities and dragons.
Yeah. I think
that may have angered people. Just
I don't know demons, if I would reference deities on the main core books.
Yeah,
is a monotheistic problem.
Yeah, but I don't think they really care. But remember, this was such a niche hobby. If you read the history, it's like they were excited when 100 people bought the rules for Chainmail and sold it out. 100 people. Did they ever really think? I don't think they were thinking like, okay, we can't call it Demons and Dragons because the world is going to be angry at us. When meanwhile they're like, oh, we just sold 100 copies. Oh boy, so exciting! They had no idea. So I don't think they really thought of it that much, and especially to the point that, obviously when D&D got more popular, they took out, this history, Mark, you probably know it even better than me. They took out all those demons and they turned them into, what did they turn them into?
So they were still the demons, but they called them Tanari, and
right.
The devils were Battlezoo.
Right.
And that was because of the Satanic Panic. They didn't want to call them demons and devils. They had Tanari and Battlezoo.
Right.
And so hell was Bator instead of hell. And that sort of allowed them to, and then the daemons were like Yugoloths, and that allowed them to not use the words specifically. It did not help at all with stopping people from doing a Satanic Panic, though.
I will say, though, dragons seem to be completely bulletproof because everything seems to have controversy. Like, I never thought orcs would have controversy, but orcs are very controversial now, and that's a whole other thing that I don't want to get into, but there's controversy with orcs. There's controversy with
there's
elves.
A lot of reasons why they would be.
I understand.
Dragons less so, because they're a mythological symbol.
But that's the thing. It's like, I can think of every aspect of D&D. Not even like, it's like, okay, demons, sure. Devils, sure. Orcs? Really? Dwarves? Halflings? Hell, humans? Like, everything seems to have a controversy around it. But dragons, no one's ever, I never see people boycotting things because of dragons. It's like,
what about leshies?
People, there's a lot of people who hate leshies. I don't know if there's a controversy.
Do they have a controversy, or is it just that Derek doesn't like them because of their cute plant nature?
But no one seems to have any problems with dragons ever. People just love them.
You would, if you go back far enough in history, like they were massively associated with, like George versus the Dragon, like they were associated with demon, like with the negative side of religion in Christian mythology. Like, so if you go back far enough, people had problems with dragons, but that apparently has not carried over. Now they're just like, they're cool. If you have problems with it, you're trying to kill it. If you don't have problems with it, you're trying to be a dragonborn, probably. Right?
Yeah, they're major or playable dragon in our book, but like they're major associated with sins and dragons, and that's why you'd have like Saint George fighting the dragon. You'd have was it Claire, the French saint who defeated the Tarrasque? There's a famous French saint who defeated the Tarrasque using just basically prayer. And so they were definitely majorly associated with sin in the past. So it was Martha, not Claire. And
I was gonna say, I don't think it's Claire.
Yeah, it wasn't. I knew it was wrong. That's why I couched it in that way. But I was like, that was the name that was coming to my mind. And so somehow they've escaped that association over time because they just became just this cultural icon of power rather than of sin. And it's certainly interesting.
And in Chinese mythology, it's luck, right? Like they're like good tidings, luck, and fortune.
There's like a lot of different things too, because there's multiple different different dragons too. And even in Greek mythology, a lot of them were like protectors rather than just like they're gonna come to your house and beat the crap out of you. They would just be like, well, I'm guarding this golden fleece or this tree of golden apples or some other golden thing.
Yeah, we can all Christianity is to blame for the massive hate on dragons. I mean, the iconic image of a knight versus a dragon was popularized by Christian mythology. So
a lot of other people beat up dragons in terms of but that was usually because they wanted something the dragon had. In a lot of earlier stories, it would be like, this dragon has a magic ring or a special item, and we must defeat the dragon. They were an obstacle, a symbol of power, and the strength and power of humanity to overcome these impossible advantages of the dragon's claws and jaws that can just rip through your armor, its breath that can destroy you in an instant, its wings that allow it to get out of your reach. It requires ingenuity, sometimes teamwork, just very strong strength in the hero. And so they were often just like an obstacle in the sense of, to get my goal, I have to beat it. But they more so became like, I'm rampaging throughout the area and someone needs to put this down in a lot of the Christian stories. So I think you're right about that.
So, talking about dragons, I did want to talk a little bit about our dragon books. So Hit Point Press has their Kickstarter out right now of Floral Dragons. So what is in the Floral Dragons book? Because obviously you have dragons that are made of flowers or flower related, or I see lots of flowery dragons when I look at that book. And I actually saw the book in person. So what is the focus of the Floral Dragon book? Because one of the things that you're doing, that we're doing, is that we're inventing new dragons. Because there's this amazing thing. There's not that many official dragons in D&D. There just aren't. And we know, because we put them all in our book, our first dragon book. And then we invented new ones because we ran out. We basically only had 39. Between Pathfinder and D&D, for this book, we only had 39 official dragons that we could find. That weren't like really weird esoteric dragons like purple dragons or pink dragons or any of those. But
we're talking true dragons go young through ancient and so on, and that existed in Pathfinder stat blocks of some kind.
Mm-hmm. And same thing for and then so we invented 6 new ones, and then I was like, you know what? It's time to make more dragons. So we just invented another 20, 4 new families of dragons. And then you also invented a whole new, well, ours is 20 dragons, 5 dragons per family, because that's kind of the standard. And then we have 1 book per family, because otherwise this would be a 400-page book. So we have 4 separate books, and each one will focus on 1 family. So how is the Floral Dragons set up?
So the Floral Dragons came about because an artist, Ken Wald, Ken the artist on social media, did these like really nice flower dragon drawings where they would just take a flower and then merge it with it, like dragonify it. And so we partnered with them to be like, okay, what if we were very purposeful about the flowers and the dragons we were creating and wrote D&D stats for them, right? So the book has 28 stat blocks, 23 dragons, like what we call dragons, but they're kind of themed around animals. So like the azalea is like a very wolf-like floral dragon, or the rhododendron's kind of like a dog. A peony's more like very lion-esque. And then we wrote rules for them, so they're not like your typical D&D dragon. There's not like a wormling, adult, young adult, ancient kind of rules for them. We just wrote a single stat block. Some have some like greater, so like the aconite has a whole lot of like lore in its mythology. So we were talking about Greek mythology, and that one Hercules is dragging Cerberus from Hades, from Tartarus into the light. Heracles for Greek, right? Thank you, media. And it drips saliva from its mouth, and from that saliva bloomed the aconite flower, which is a very poisonous flower that makes you froth at the mouth. And that's the myth there. So we have a greater version of that dragon where it grows 3 heads. So we were like trying to tie the mythology into the creatures we were creating. But no, it's single stack blocks. We moved away from the idea of like a breath weapon, and we have every dragon has like a floral presence. So not every dragon, but the higher end dragons that are more dragon-esque have a floral presence ability that allows them to do almost like an area of effect. So instead of like breathing it out, it's just something that they have, that they like an aroma or aura that they kind of emit that allows them to have an ability. So like the cherry blossom dragon can charm or frighten creatures using that aura rather than like breathe a breath weapon. But they're all just kind of, I don't know how good this will see up on the camera. So we were talking about like the rhododendron. So like, it's like a dog.
Yeah, we see it.
Versus say the cherry blossom. It's right before that one. So this was the book you got to see at it's an advanced copy from like, so that one's themed more around like Asiatic dragons and Kieran.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one that has like a breath weapon, or like the more of like a breathy aroma floral presence. So there's 23 of those creatures. I'd say if you were looking at, say, like, does it look like a dragon, like a full dragon? You're probably only like 6 or 7 that kind of look very dragon-esque as you would typically see them, but a lot of them are more like we took an animal, added some dragon elements, and incorporated flower into it to make it a flower dragon. I think we also have like Vespins, which are like bee pollinators, and we have pests, and then we have a big bad fungus dragon that can actually do like the cordyceps thing, that the fungus that can take over ants, but it can actually take over other floral dragons to corrupt them and make them like zombie-esque versions of themselves. So again, it is very cute, but there are poisonous, negatively aligned dragons like the aconite or the Pleurosa fungus mushroom dragon.
So we do it, actually, we're similar. Actually, the books are sort of similar in the sense that we have, well, ours are playable, so that's a subtle difference. In our books, you can play the dragons as PCs, and each book has full rules. It's expanding upon our original book, and that had 45 playable dragon types. So this one, there'll be 5 per book with full rules on how to play each dragon type. But since they're new dragons, we also have extensive lore for the family of dragons, as well as, and we have a traditional 5 dragons per family, and we have Leshy dragons, battle dragons, misfit dragons, and fairy dragons. So those are the 4 that we have. We do have traditional stat blocks, and we have the wormlings, adult, ancient, and we have the great worms, and we even have, according with stretch goals, the super great worms, which will actually have their own lairs, and these things are going to be way too strong. Like, that's one thing I know.
To be clear, they are not more great worm than the great worms. They are using the stat blocks of the great worms, but like Steven said, with its own lair, with all sorts of information, fully fleshed out. Because when you get like a level 22 great worm stat block, if it's just there, it's harder to use it. But if you have all this information, you can make an entire storyline or a campaign that takes that stat block that we already have and makes it, just brings it to life and fleshes it out.
Slightly disagree with you, because for 5e, we are going to make the Great Worms.
Oh, well, you're right about 5e.
Okay, well, I was getting to that.
You're
for
sort of
5e.
right, but about 5e, they are already super great worms.
Yeah, no, we're making these
stat
things.
block we're included is already a super great worm, regardless of whether we hit the new stretch goal or not. Yeah. And then
we're making these things kill you. We're going to make these things kill you, because people always complain like, "Oh, I fought a level 30 dragon. I was level 7 and I killed it." I'm like, yeah, we're going to make sure our guys make these things more like level 60 dragons. So they're going to kill you. Like, you want a challenge? We'll make sure we give you a challenge. Trust me. These things are going to be tough.
So Steven says that they're going to be level 60. They're going to be the same level, but they're going to be a challenge for that level, because people have said that they were not an appropriate challenge, the ones that they found so far that were great worms, or they didn't have the pizzazz of a creature of that level. So we're going to have our 5e converters make sure
they're going to make sure these things
there's something
tough.
cool that's in there.
Yeah, they're going to be tough.
And they have cool abilities added on. Like some of the cool things Brian's been talking about, these floral dragons have. I'm interested in the Cordyceps one. I was just playing a video game like a few weeks ago where one of the characters was like being controlled by Cordyceps.
Which game? What's that?
It was about like bugs. It was like a Paper Mario bug game, and one of the characters was like a moth who was like from 100 years ago or something. And he's like, why is he even still alive? And the answer is the Cordyceps were inside of him and had like kind of glommed onto him and developed like some of this, like the same memories that the original moth had, and we're sort of living his life now at that point.
So yeah, so we are, and actually the two writers that we have for the 5e, I don't know if you know this, Mark, but I think Paul, they only play high level D&D. Like I
know that Paul has played a lot. I mean, he doesn't only play high level, he said, but he has played up to high level a lot.
Well, he plays, he did mostly high level. He likes to play level 15 to 20.
He also did a huge amount of working on and revamping monsters for level up for Ian Publishing, and he has reverse engineered the 5e monster system very deeply. So he knows what the strengths are of the 5e monster system, and where the weaknesses are on some of those high-level monsters.
My point is that he likes to play very high-level D&D, which you never hear. Like, you never hear people like, if people always stop at 10, he's like, oh, no, I like to play level 20. Like, he plays mostly 15 to 20. So I told him, and I'm like, you're going to make these things kill you at level 20. He's like, good. I was like, I want these things to be tough. I want these things to be a challenge. Which I still remember, we have a friend of ours who they went from D&D to Pathfinder. You know who I'm talking about, Luke. And he's like, Mark, let me ask you, why did everyone die when I threw 2 severe encounters at them in a row? I don't understand.
Without letting them take any time to pause.
It's like, I don't understand. That's not supposed to happen. I'm like, because you're not playing D&D anymore. 2 severe encounters will kill everyone. That's why.
I mean, well, we had a whole thing with Luke where we went through and the core rulebook said that it's very dangerous if you do that, because if you do a severe encounter, it drains your resources. And he's like, oh yeah, it did. I'm just used to the Dungeon Master's Guide where it says that a one of these, they're not called severe though, they're called deadly. It's like a deadly encounter is dangerous, but it's never dangerous for my players. So I just assumed that I should ignore that part of the book and just, because my players are very tactical, and just throw in the hardest thing I possibly could. And I was like, so we've got to use the one that's in the book. He's like, that's great. And he took a lot of notes, and I think he's been doing it since then. He's not run into that.
Yeah, I will say, we're playing high level play Pathfinder. It is fun, man. It's a lot, because the amount of things they can do especially the spellcasters, because now they have level 8 spells. They're about to turn level 17, so they're about to get the level 9 spells. And I'm like, they are just, the amount of damage that they're doing at these high levels, and vice versa, when they're actually using scare to death and scaring creatures to death just by looking at them and like doing, just insane amounts of damage. It is really fun. I'm kind of surprised, because everyone always says how high level is such a pain in the neck, but it is awfully fun.
We did our best to make it run smoothly for you.
But that's actually why I wanted to get, because the people like, why are you doing such high level creatures? Well, there's another secret about D&D books and game books in general. There's not a lot of high level creatures, and in fact, this keeps happening. Is that when you play these books, if you ever play an adventure that goes up to like level 15 and above, I was playing 2 at the same time, and up until level 15, it was very rare that the same monsters would appear in both books. It just didn't happen that often. But now, once you're up to level 14, 15, 16, it's the same creatures, same monsters, because there just aren't that many. They just don't make as many high-level creatures because they're, they don't expect people to get that high, and most people are playing at lower levels. So there's a lot of creatures from levels 8 and below, really. I think 8 is kind of the sweet spot where there's the most. It's like 5 through 8 is where there's a huge number of creatures. But once you go above like 15, it really gets thin up there, and there's very few creatures. So I wanted to add options to make sure that people had lots of cool things to fight at very high levels. And there were things that you didn't see before, or ever, really. So how was Floral Dragons handling that, since you're just giving a general stat block? But then I guess people will make their own and just say, yep, here we go. Here's a great worm. Or
if you want to make a great one. I mean, like the Fluorosa fungus is CR 21.
Oh, okay. So you do have big ones.
There's a Manicheel, which is kind of like a poisonous apple tree. That's CR 25.
Oh, damn.
And then an apple tree that's CR 27. So we tried to do a decent spread. Like I have the breakdown here. Like we have 2 at CR 17, 1 at 16, 2 at 15, 14, 12. And so about half, we try to make it so about half the book is above CR 10.
Okay, that's good. So you didn't do the full family, but you do have dragons from all ranges of levels. So
right. So we wanted it, like, no matter what level you're playing at, that you can get something out of the book that would be fun. So like the apple tree is kind of like a more nurturing, protective dragon. And so the setting we've kind of created is that looks out for villages, and then the Manicheel is like the evil version of that, and then the Fluorosa is more of just, it's like the Borg, just kind of tries to take over everything.
Nice.
Next to Brian, I don't know if you noticed that there's a floral dragon right next to him in the artwork. Look at that. That's on the
oh yeah, one of our floral dragons is to the right.
Yeah, it's just coincident. Other way, pointing to the other. There we go.
There we go. See? Cross pollination.
That's right. The cross pollination.
And we have a fungal dragon too by Jenny D. She made although her dragons, her fungal dragon's a chef, and they basically use there's actually one of our pictures of it picking its own mushrooms off its shoulder and then putting it into the pot.
We had a mushroom themed bad guy.
I don't know.
It seems a little bit.
Might be.
I mean, we have things where like you can eat the fruit of like the apple tree's apples fall down, and they're just like people sized almost. And so there's like a drawing of a bunch of people eating around that, but it's using like a giant pot.
Yikes.
Because the apples are just that large. But so we did things where you can eat the fruit of those. But I know, like, I had an artist that we were working on a big bad that was mushroom themed. They were just like, they were like, I just can't do mushrooms growing out of the skin. It just skews me out. So, like, that was immediately what I thought of when you're like, oh, they grow mushrooms and they pick it and put it in food.
Well, ours does. She wanted a mushroom dragon, so we made a mushroom dragon. She had very specific, but it goes with the theme. But this is it's a fairly friendly dragon. That's the other thing, is that most of our dragons like aren't inherently good or bad. Unlike, it always bothered me that it's like, oh, red dragons are evil and they're always evil, and metal dragons are good and they're always good. Our dragons are like the battle dragons. They love to battle, but they're not evil. They just like to fight, and that's their thing. They'll fight for good. They'll fight for evil. They just, they are what they are. They're like, for the monster stats, they do have default. Well, actually, if we're doing
orc,
we're doing orc, so there is no alignment. anymore.
But there aren't any that are holy or unholy in Orc. They're not that evil. They're not that good that they would add holy or unholy in Orc. We do have alignments the authors gave them so we could use it for 5e. And even then, I think that they were like all mostly neutral. It's possible that the Mischief Dragon, the one that's based on gremlins, is evil because the gremlins are pretty much always evil.
Yeah, but he's not evil
it's not so evil that it has the unholy traits in Orc.
He's not evil, he's mischief. In fact, I will invent a brand new alignment when we do that. I'll just have MS for mischief.
MS?
Mischief. Would it be MS? MF? M?
Maybe M.
I know you can't do MF.
Yeah, don't do that. That's Brian is right.
Oh man, there's no such thing as bad press. Oh no, might have to do that.
You could do CM, Chaotic Mischief.
Chaotic Mischief, CM. That's what I would like. Actually, if I did invent something new, Mark, it would be not so much an alignment system, but a personality system where it's like, what's their personality? And then you have that, like a literally a line for personality.
Do a personality test as your character, and it tells you, it's like, well, your character is an introverted, intuitive, feeling, and judgmental character.
Oh, wait, I forgot to tell you the best part of Shadow Dark. Don't play a game of Shadow Dark with me, because I was the fighter. Because we found a, there was this, okay, let me put this in front of you. Let's see what you would do. Okay, we're in a temple. It's a forbidden temple. Half of it is underwater and sunk. And there's a woman holding a huge sword in this, like, it's a statue of a woman. And at the bottom is a offering bowl filled with 3 magic weapons. What do you do?
Yeah, if I'm Steven, then Steven just takes the magic weapons and runs away while the punishment of the gods strikes everyone else in the room.
Well, that's what right. But what would you as a normal person do?
I would not do that.
Well, that's exactly what I did. I was like, cool. I take the weapons, and then DM's like, "You're taking the weapons." I'm like, of course I'm taking the weapons. He goes, okay, well, it animates and attacks you and does 6 points of damage. I'm like, cool, let's go. We killed it, and now I have 2 + 1 weapons. Let me tell you. And that was the other thing. Like, and there's a red potion, and then I drink it. And even the other people are like, he's like, you didn't even identify it? I was like, I'm down to 1 hit point. What's the worst that can happen? It's red. Isn't red a healing potion? Even the other players were stunned. I was like, dude, you have not played with me. It's like, I go very fast and I break a lot. It ended up making me fly. And then suddenly I was always out of the reach of everything we fought because I was flying up in the air with the spear. See? Gotta think 3-dimensionally. But yes, it is fun playing with people who don't know when I'm chaotic, Brian. Like when I play these games, if you had personality traits, I always play chaotic neutral, but we're not even chaotic good. I'd even say not chaotic evil because even that's a little too much for me. But man, these characters are really chaotic. And then you throw it into a game like Shadow Dark. Oh, I'm actually kind of surprised we all survived. I'll leave it at that.
Chaotic characters are fun as long as there's a balance, right? Like you have to have the straight man to the chaotic character at some point. 2
of these people never played before, so then they started to take my lead and they were doing it, and then the whole party was crazy, and I was like, "All right, this is fun."
What are you teaching them, Steve?
I was teaching them.
What are you teaching them?
Oh, I'm teaching them. That's how you play. They're like, oh, this guy, he's a YouTuber. He must know what he's doing. He's famous. Okay, we'll all be crazy. I didn't know that's how you played the game. See, I'm teaching them. It's like I'm teaching them bad habits. That's what I'm doing.
Okay. Here's a fun question. So I'm going to ask each of you, what is your favorite dragon in your current Kickstarter? And I'm aware that it's also my Kickstarter that we're on, Steven. But Steven, which is your favorite of the 20? And Brian, which is your favorite of the Floral Dragons?
That's not fair.
It's like picking your favorite kid.
I know.
Yeah, it's not fair.
It's the one that plays D&D with me. That's the favorite kid.
Okay.
Oh my
Hopefully
god!
she won't see this video.
I have to look now. I never even thought about that.
Hopefully she won't see the video, or hopefully the other kid won't see the video and be like,
her twin won't see the video.
Okay,
I'm gonna show it to him anyway. I'll tell him.
Fair enough.
Man, that's a tough one. If I had to pick, just for me, just because of the thing I like it'd be the mushroom guy. That's that guy right there. See what it does to like a.
Mm-hmm.
That guy looks really cool.
That's creepy looking.
So that would probably be my favorite. Again, I like necromancers and weird creatures like that. So the idea of a dragon that, infects other dragons and turns them into like zombies is, to me, I like that. If I had to go off of to like partially the lore, like I really liked, again, I use that example of that Cerberus Aconite.
Mm-hmm.
That's, let me see where we have the rules there. Let's see the three-headed guy.
Yeah,
like I liked being able to do, like, for me, that journey there to like pick the flower and then incorporate the mythology into the creature was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's just cool. The weird thing is, since we have floral dragons in our Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter is where we launched that three-headed ancestry, we could do that. We could do the
Hydra's my favorite then, in that case, but because you get to play 4 characters in one body. But I don't know if that would. That kind of counts, but
it's sort of not exactly part of the Kickstarter, but it kind of, it's close. But
right, well,
I'm just saying we could have it so that people could play the Aconite as their PC, or 3 people together at least.
But here's the thing. So my favorite family, you know what my favorite family is.
I'm pretty sure your favorite is the Misfits, although I know you like the Battle Dragons a lot too. But I think Misfits are your favorite.
The Misfits are my favorite.
I think of the 5 Misfits that I'm not sure which one is your number 1 favorite, but I think it may be Wellspring, because their randomness is the randomest of all of them. Like the others have misfitty things they're doing, but they're very defined, like blinking in and out of existence or warping their body all the time. Yeah, but you don't know what's going to happen with the Wellspring Dragon. I think that appeals to you. That's my guess.
The Wellspring Dragon's fun because even as a PC, you're not exactly sure. Even you don't know what's going to happen, which has a great appeal to me. I like the Bionic probably the most because I love mixing. I like to mix my science fiction with fantasy whenever possible, and it's not steampunk. Okay, there's a difference. There's steampunk, and this is like hard sci-fi / like science fiction. This is technology that shouldn't be in this world, which I did on purpose because I was like, I'm kind of sick and tired of steampunk. But that's not
the Bionic Dragon is like, it's not steampunk. It's not super late sci-fi. No. It's sort of a magic tech. But with Clark's Law, any technology sufficiently advanced and distinguishable from magic. It's a magic tech that's replacing its body parts that are dying of this overpowering necromancy.
You know why? Because my favorite from Star Trek, one of my favorite characters is the Borg. And one of the more interesting parts about this is 7 of 9, that so much of her body was supposedly taken apart or taken over by Borg technology, is that what you see, like her eyes and even like her arms and stuff, those are all prosthetics. Like she actually is like more Borg than human, and none of that's actually real. It just looks real because the prosthetics in Star Trek are so good. And some of it they couldn't remove. That's why some of it is like peeking through. Because people are like, why did she have that like one thing over her eye? I'm like, because that's not her eye. That's all fake. And they couldn't remove it because it was like some part of her brain or something. So that's why I like, and that's kind of where they came from.
Well, if you look at another source for that, from Voyager, what about the Vidians?
The Vidians are very close to that. The Vidians are
they didn't become bionic. But they were also dying of this necromantic phage, sort of thing.
Ooh, yeah, it's very similar. By the way, most of my ideas from Dragons come from Star Trek. It's true. Misfit might be my favorite. Although I like the Alicorn, because who doesn't like taking a unicorn and a dragon and putting them together? Come on, they're so fun.
Alicorn is pretty good.
Alicorn is pretty fun. But the Dragon Misfit, The Misfit Dragon? Come on. It's a gremlin and a dragon?
The Mischief one that's eating the cake on the cover?
Yeah, the Mischief. Mischief Dragon. Come on. That's like that's like your worst nightmare. It's like the power of a dragon with the
psychology of a gremlin.
Of the soul of a gremlin. Oof. That's a bad combo, but boy, would that make a lot of fun role playing. Oh boy.
Imagine one of those teaming up with the Cordyceps dragon from Floral Dragons, where it's just the gremlin just is working to spread the fungal disease from the other dragon just because they think it's hilarious.
That would be.
Everyone's like, did you have a plan, Mischief Dragon? Like, did you want the world to become these zombie Cordyceps creatures? It's like, no, I just thought it was really fun.
Yeah, that would
to see what would happen.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's exactly right. Someone said Steven is Leroy Jenkins. I am Leroy Jenkins.
He is.
Completely. You know that was faked, by the way.
Yes, I was going to say even down to the fact that it was faked and staged to get attention, which you are a master of marketing, so you would have known how to do that. So.
Well, but I was working with Blizzard, and John was working at Blizzard when that happened. And we had people like that all the time when we would play, because we had 40-man raids. Can you imagine 40 people playing in one raid back then with the garbage technology where it barely worked? And I mean, now it's hard to even get 5 people together, let alone 40 people. So
it's a lot.
It's a lot.
I remember...
so hard.
I've said before on the show, I played World of Warcraft for one semester for a school project where they said I need to play it and write a paper about
your thesis.
The narrative. And during that time, because the professor made it clear I did not have to join a high-powered guild that would put huge time constraints on me. But I needed some guild information for my paper, so I joined like a really chill guild that was too incompetent to do anything, and they were perfect fit for me. But I needed to do a raid because that was important for the paper. So I managed to do a pickup group, 40-person Onyxia raid, and it was a disaster because it was a pickup group, and they did not, like, some people were experienced and they tried to explain what was going to happen, and I was able to follow it, but half the people were just like, I don't know. Oh no, all these dragons are coming. What am I supposed to do? And it was kind of a fiasco, and I wrote about it in my paper.
Onyxia. We actually did that on what was the hardest level and got the special mount.
Good work.
Yeah, it only took us like 50 tries, and I was talking to the World of Warcraft guys, and they were like, dude, they were so mad. It took them a week. It took them like 200 tries. These are the guys who freaking programmed it, and they couldn't even do it. But we had a really good group back then. Like, it was really good. But you couldn't mess up. Like, if one person died, you might be able to keep doing it. 2 people, you're like, I just wipe. It's like 2 people dead, just wipe, because there was no point. You couldn't do it. It was so hard back then. Anyhow, yes, the Leroy Jenkins, completely faked. But it was just the whole way. There's a perfect, that was like so meme worthy, just the way he does it. Because it's just like, even still thinking about that, it's like so freaking funny. But I tell you, it's memorable whenever you do that. I still remember, because in our groups we have John Stats, and John always does that. He'll be like, enough talk, and he just kicks open the door, and it just walks right in. No checking for trout, he just walks right in. And sometimes he dies, but you never forget it. Leave it at that. He always, it's always memorable. So, are there any dragons like that in Floral Dragons? Are there any crazy chaos type floral dragons? What type of flower would be a chaos flower?
I don't think there's any that are inherently like that. But
is there a snapdragon? Is there a snapdragon? Someone asked that.
No, somebody did comment that on the Kickstarter. They're like, if there's not a snapdragon dragon, I'm going to be disappointed. And I'm not in charge of the comments, but I was going to be like, I'm sorry.
Was that you on the nose? You're like, we can't do a snapdragon dragon because then that's a dragon.
Yeah. So more than likely that would be like you said, like snapdragon dragon, but we'd probably call it from something, one of its like Latin names or whatever for the flower. But no, there's no. I mean, there are some like the ornithogallum that like farmers have to chase away from their fields because it'll just eat all the crops, and then it leaves like the leaves are poisonous to other dragons. So it's not like it tries to be mean, but it causes harm accidentally by existing. The Azalea is probably the smartest trickster X one. Like it's like it's like the wolf, but it's a pack hunter.
Cool. Does it have some abilities where if there's multiple of them together, they can like get some extra benefits or advantage or something like that?
Yeah, the dragon has advantage on attack rolls against a creature if at least one of the dragon's allies is within 5 feet of the creature.
I knew it.
Incapacitated. Yep. I knew it was in there. I just couldn't remember. We call it pack tactics. But yeah.
That's so it's even the name that you gave it is, I was almost going to say, to have some kind of like pack tactics ability to do that. And
it's like you're a writer.
No, I just would say that it's what I intuitively would think it would be, which is it's also a sign of good design. Because some people are like, oh, this is exactly the same as what another person would make, and they think it was done like looking at one another or something like that. No, it's because writers and good designers know what you're expecting to see, what the human brain can process correctly, and what makes sense. And it's just like, this is satisfying and makes sense. And it has that. Like, for example, Linda was, my wife was working on a monster that was like a living lightning rod. And when she told me that that was one of the monsters she needed to look at, I was like, okay, it better have an ability where as a reaction, if lightning strikes, it can redirect it to itself because it's a lightning rod. And she says, it does have that ability. And I was like, good, because if you're a living lightning rod, you definitely should do that, right?
That makes sense. Yeah.
So with the dragon book, are there plans for other types of dragon books in the future, or is this sort of
well, I mean, the Kickstarter's done really well. I'll imagine we'll continue to expand the content. So like Kickstarter, like stretch goal wise, we hit an adventure, so we're going to do a small mini adventure. It's the precursor to the mushroom thing, where you're just starting to find out about the fungal infestation that's coming into the forest. And then we have some character options that are planned, more items going into the like setting information. So like the book is a field guide, so it talks about the mountain, the environment, but what does that look like as a full setting? Like I think we'll do like a dragon village as part of that. But I would imagine, again, because people reacted really well to the project, I would love to see a floral dragons too. But a lot of that's going to depend on so like Kin the artist, our development timeline. So like we're really ramping, like we have a design Bible going for Humblewood 2 right now, so we're kind of really working on that. But it was a fun project to work on. I would love to do more dragons. We had lots of ideas for other ones. Me, the artist, and the content team, and I all brainstorming together, a couple years ago when we were working on the book. So it'd be beautiful to see more, but at the moment, there's nothing that we've committed to.
So we have a question. Have any of you looked at dragons with the 2C Gaming's Dragonflight book? It's a family of dragons called Orchid Dragons, and the dragons are playable as a race class. I do have that book and have looked at it, but I'm not the right person to ask because Mark wrote Battlezoo Ancestry Dragons. And we have two very different approaches because theirs was only from 5e. And we actually...
Was the Dragonflight book the one you were talking to me about before that we discussed? So I couldn't remember the name of that book. But yeah, those approaches were very different. If this is the one. If it's not, then apologies. Because there is a book out there, which I think is this Dragonflight book, that has a playable dragon. And their approach was basically just like, it's a dragon. It's way more powerful than a character. It's as powerful kind of as multiple characters. So we're just going to make it super strong and then adjust your party as if you had included more than one character if you have a dragon. Whereas where we went was, we don't want you to have to adjust your party or have to do a group of all dragons. We want that to be something any player can choose to play a dragon if they want to, and the GM can just roll with it. And so our dragons are capable of getting all sorts of power-ups with the appropriate feats, but otherwise fit with other ancestries or species in their game.
Yeah, Mark figured out a way, because every other attempted dragons were always like, you are a dragon, you are crazy powerful, and like a level, level 1, your level 1 dragon was like a level 5 character. It was always unbalanced, because how do you balance it? But Mark came up with a very ingenious way where they give up all their power. It's almost like a magic wish. It's like, okay, I wish to be a real boy, and then they become a real adventurer, but they lose all their power, and then through adventuring, they need to slowly get their power back. So yeah, they're true dragons, but they're very weak, and over time, they get very strong. But they still have the ability to do everything a dragon can do. They just do it very weakly compared to a true dragon or a real dragon.
Or eventually they get stronger after only a few years instead of having to wait centuries or millennia to get that power. So it's kind of a super short-term drop to get a medium-term big benefit.
Right. But that's how you're able to also play a dragon, and it balances. It balances perfect with the rest of the party, because you don't have any abilities that are stronger than really any other PC. You're just flavored as a dragon. But you do get a lot of cool innate things, and each dragon family has its own flavor. So now you have 45 plus, you'll have 65 different types of dragons to play. So you could literally... In fact, we could just call it, there's no Dungeons and Dragons. It's just called Dragons. That's it.
Dragons and more dragons.
Dragons and dragons. That's D squared.
Brian was talking about cross-pollination, but the funny thing about OGL, or notwithstanding, is like, if we wanted to, like if Hit Point and Wolf Combat wanted to, the OGL is out there, and we could literally cross-pollinate in future books.
That's true. If they are OGL, then we could.
I guess they could be CC/BY and could be fully closed to everybody. That is something I have come across now that I'm thinking about it. Now that Wizards has put things into the Creative Commons.
Yeah, some people are starting to do that. Well, I don't do that. Well, I don't, for various reasons.
Well, I know you believe in open gaming, Steven.
Well, it's not even that. It's that we have enough protected, because like the lore and art and names, like that's all protected. It's really just the mechanics that aren't. So you can go crazy with mechanics, but there's only so much you can do with mechanics. So anyhow, is Floral Dragons, is that OGL or is that CCY, or
pretty sure it's OGL still?
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, in that case,
that would mean if
our new stretch
their
goals,
Floral Dragons wanted to OGL
dragons.
site our Leshy Dragons, they could. And if we wanted to OGL site the Floral Dragons, it'd be like, in addition to these, there are hundreds of other dragons out there in the world. We could. Obviously, you can't name the other person's product, but you can cite the OGL stuff and then put the OGL on the back.
There you go. As I was going to say, it could be a stretch goal. You make a Floral Dragon. Playable Floral Dragon. Actually, that'd be pretty cool, actually.
I think for a stretch goal, it would be even more fun to like actually work together on doing something like on purpose between the two, rather than just, I mean, you don't have to because of OGL, but it's more cool. That would be like, feel more like a crossover, cross-pollination stretch goal.
I feel like working together would work better, right?
Yeah, no, I was kidding, but because it's a little too late for that. But if you guys are, let me know. We still got a few more weeks left. We still have 24 more stretch goals to go, so we got a while. So, but
we planned our stretch goals out, and like things have done pretty well. So now we're like, okay, maybe we need more, but we'll see by the end of the campaign.
Well, we planned ours out, but I'll be fair, like now the stretch goals are to the point that it's completely new work. Sometimes it's new work or sort of new work, but now it's new work. Like now it's to the point of we don't have anything, so it actually has to be made.
We had like the preliminary stuff that would say about half of what we would need to get through on the first stretch goals, because we were going to put that into something else anyway later on, but we have 0 of any of these stretch goals.
So a lot of the stuff like the adventure we did, we're gonna Like we're working on that now. Like we have a framework, a wireframe, but nothing's been finalized. Everything but the book is designed and ready to go. All of that stuff. So any of the Kickstarter stuff that we'll do will be PDF digital releases, and then Floor Dragon 2 happen. I'll probably get collated into that.
So they said the favorite part of these streams is when the guest has to patiently listen to Stephen and Mark talk about their own products. Hey man, we're talking about Brian's products. I'm excited. There's very few people who do these dragon books because it's hard. Dragons are really, 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 really hard to do. There's a reason why you don't see them that often, and even there's a lot of articles on that. In fact, I always see that. It's like I've seen articles that say, "Oh, dragons are boring. Dragons take up too much space in books. Dragon fights aren't fun." And the thing is that I completely agree with 90% of those, because there's so much built up to dragons, is that when you actually fight them, is that they're either too weak or too powerful. So how do you balance it? And I think, we worked very hard at that to sort of make it that they're balanceable. And I think a big part of it is that in books, like even D&D and Pathfinder, is that they spend and have so much dedicated to the stat block that there's no lore. And we know this for a fact, because when we went back to write about each of these dragons, or Mark did, there would be one sentence.
Some of them in Pathfinder First Edition were just like, it was just like forest dragon, chaotic evil. These capricious and malicious dragons live in the forest.
That's it.
It was not exactly that much, but it was very close to that.
That's all they have. And I was like, that's it?
Fortunately, the Pathfinder 2 version that Sen HHS wrote was able to fit more lore than that.
Right.
Although when I was developing that one with Logan, we still weren't able to fit that much lore because of just the amount of space in the stat blocks.
Because it takes too much space. Because it's like, do you really want to dedicate 15-20% of your book to just dragons? And the answer is usually no. So then we're like, okay, then we're going to make an entire book of dragons, and then we'll dedicate hundreds of pages to dragons with dozens and dozens of pages of lore, so you could really flesh them out. And they don't always have to be one and done. They could be NPCs, they could be PCs, they could be, in our adventures we have a lot of dragons as NPCs. They're very common. So and I think there's never been a good way. It's one of these funny things, because you'll see this also. Another article I see a lot is Dungeons and Dragons, where are the dragons? And think about it. How often have you ever fought a dragon in D&D? I can count on one hand the number of times I've done it. It's so rare. And I've been playing for 47 years. It just doesn't happen. You just don't do it.
I fought a lot of dragons, Steven.
I've fought a lot of dragons.
Oh, really? Then maybe my DMs, maybe my DMs suck. I never fight. I've never fought a dragon.
Although you like the forever GM?
I am the forever GM, and also we don't really have dragon fights that frequently. But when I have a dragon fight, oh boy, does it! My best dragon fight was a PaizoCon. And Mark's, you're Mark Seifter. Who were we playing? We were playing with Jason Kelsey, and we fought a dragon, and it was level 1, and it had 5 hit points. Level 1 dragon, and it was so much fun, and we killed it dead. And then Jason stood up on the table and put his arm up and declared himself Dragon Slayer. I have a picture. There was an open bar at PaizoCon, and he was very drunk, so I'll leave it at that. But it was a fun night that was had by all.
Last game I played as not a GM but a player in my Saturday group, we literally fought a dragon. It was like a diabolical blue dragon or something like that could shoot hellfire or lightning, and it was ridiculously dangerous. But I managed to trip it, which caused it to fall out of the air onto the ground, and then we beat the crap out of it before it could get away.
Tripping a dragon, that's such a...
that was the mechanic, but you could write it however you wanted.
Yeah,
I guess, but it makes sense.
I don't let people trip my dragons.
Really? It says you can in Pathfinder 2.
Well, that's
you would know.
Yeah, they can, but not in my game, because they have anti-tripping magic. They're too big. Okay, if you're a monk and you have like Titan Wrestler You can trip it. That's the rule. Yeah.
Oh, well, my thing to trip the dragon was huge.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's okay.
It was an Eidolon. But,
oh, fine. Okay, that's allowed. I'm thinking. I've seen these people.
I thought you were
like,
saying you couldn't trip it because it's a dragon.
No, I'm saying I've seen these people that are like level, like medium size to go to a dragon.
Between its legs.
What?
Yeah, no. I had a flying huge Eidolon that flew up there. I knocked it prone, and then in the rules for prone, it says if you would be knocked prone while you're climbing or flying, you fall. And so therefore it fell. It was not happy with me when that happened.
Okay, that's fine. That's acceptable. I'm talking about the old, I'm a monk and I'm walking up to the dragon and I'm doing my trip. I'm like, what size are you? Medium. No, you're not tripping the dragon. I don't care. Unless you got some feats to let you do it. It's gigantic. It's gargantuan. You're not tripping the dragon. I'm sorry. So I was like, but I was like, well, you're not. So live with it. Kill it the other 50 ways you have to kill it. Okay? it's like the last. There's 100 ways to get rid of this thing. That's like the lamest one of all. Because then they're trying to break the game for you as the GM. They'll let you have fun. Or I can go the other way and let it be tripped. It's like, okay, you trip it, coup de grace, fight's over. That was fun. Let's keep going.
I mean, we still had multiple rounds of our oracle getting eaten while it was on the ground. We tripped it just so that it would engage with us and we could fight it. Because before that, it was just flying like 200 feet away and nobody could reach it.
All right, that's fine. So, although in our game recently with Vanessa and Lauren, there was a dragon in a tower and they fought it and lost. So they went back to the tower, snuck under it, and they got like all these earth moving spells. I forgot which spell it is that like it removes the earth. It's like kind of
Eight stone or some of those.
No, it was a high level. It's like one of those 7th, 8th level spells where you can like evacuate earth. So like, okay, we're gonna go up to the tower and we're gonna get rid of all the earth on one side and tip over the tower with the dragon in it. And I was like, okay, and they did it. The monk went on the other side. He got a large Titan wrestler. He pushed the tower. They went to the other side. They got rid of the dirt, and then the tower just fell. And then the dragon's like, just fell. But it was fun. It actually took damage, but it still was a dragon. It just came out and was like, what did you do? I was like, see, now that's like a trip, but that's a cool trip. That's way more memorable than walking it up to it and tripping it. It's like they destroyed the whole tower, and then everything in it got killed except for the dragon. That's a fun way. There we go. So, we're 2 hours in, and I think Brian has to go soon. So, do you want to have anything else? Any cool things coming up with Hit Point besides Floral Dragons and what was the other one? The sequel to your other book?
Humblewood?
Yes, and why are you doing a sequel? I'm just curious. It's so rare to see someone actually do a sequel as opposed to just an expansion.
Well, I mean, it's kind of a expansion, so it continues the story of the adventure that we had in the first one.
Oh, I see.
So we've done a second Humblewood book, Humblewood Tales, and that collected the PDFs that we wrote as part of the stretch goals from the first campaign, as well as our first free RPG Day adventure, along with some more information about the Humblewood specific settings. But like one of the favorite things I liked about Humblewood is a forest this big on a continent this big on a world this big. So there are lots of story and that we can go into. So Humblewood 2 is coming out of we're calling it Beyond the Canopy, and it's going out of the forest and exploring the continent. So the adventure is going to take everybody through multiple locations and continue the story from the first book. So in addition to like new player races and class options, so the same kind of stuff we had in the first book that are setting agnostic, that you can take and play whatever you want. Because one of my favorite things to tell people at conventions is if you want to do pigeons versus Strahd, you can do that. I just need someone to explain to me where the fangs on a bird grow. Because their teeth are beaks, right?
What level will that be? Because would it continue the adventure and you have to be the next level, or does it just you can start at level 1?
pretty sure it's going to pick up where the other one left off, so it'll start at like 4th or 5th level.
Okay.
And then that'll carry through, the adventure, but I think we'll have some options to tweak that level if you wanted to start in that setting or skip the book from the first one. But the first adventure from Humblewood 1 was designed to introduce you to the setting and the major locales around Humblewood. And the same kind of thing will happen with this one, except it'll just be the continent instead of just the one little forest. Because when we were doing Humblewood 1, who knew how popular it was going to be, right? Like, we had done reference cards before that. That was our first like foray into campaign setting stuff. So that was a fun one to just keep watching that Kickstarter tick up over time. But yeah, so Humblewood 2, we have a Patreon going for that where people can be a part of the design journey that's in the book right now. We have like live stream chats that we have for Patreons that are eventually uploaded to our YouTube. You can see me and Rico, the owner, you met at Gamma, talking about the early art direction for the project on there now, because they just uploaded that a couple weeks ago. Yeah, so Humblewood 2's big. Flow of Dragons is going on right now. What we have coming out soon are like Big Bads is going into manufacturing. Fool's Gold is also going into manufacturing. So we'll have those physically here soon. Humblewood Tales is in fulfillment. And then as far as other stuff in the pipeline, like we have some projects planned out, but nothing. I think there's a quick start for it, Shift, where we kind of made our own easily playable, swappable RPG system that we were handing out samples for at PAX Unplugged for a little bit. And then we have a free quick start beta on our website for that too. But there should be some cool stuff happening with that soon, hopefully.
Cool.
Awesome.
All right. Well, when does your Kickstarter end? I think it ends kind of around
May 2nd, I think. May 1st, May 2nd.
Ours ends
May 1st at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time.
There you go.
So we're following right. I think ours ends at 10 o'clock.
There you go.
Because we started our campaign at 10 o'clock.
Oh, I usually just like to. I usually end it at midnight only because otherwise it's like kind of got to get up early.
Maybe ours is ending midnight. I'm not sure. I'll have to double check with.
Oh no, I'm just saying. I'm telling you when I do because otherwise it's you got to get up early and you got to because you got to always be there for the end. So I'm already up, so it's like
yours is ending 3:05 p.m.
Ours is ending 3:05. There you go. That sounds about right.
It's not 3 p.m. It's 3:05 p.m.
Well, because it gives those extras. I actually know why you do that because it gives the extra like stragglers a few extra minutes.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same reason the backer kit allows you to keep going.
That's a smart idea. That actually, I like that a lot.
Yeah. If anyone's done something within the last 10 minutes, they'll just keep extending it until nobody does.
It's very smart.
That's a very clever idea, I think.
I know. I wish I did that. I was like, oh, that was good. I wish Kickstarter did that. So
I know Kickstarter's taking that feedback. So I mean, yeah, we had a meeting with BackerKit at Gamma where they were talking about that. I imagine Kickstarter knows that they have to,
Oh yeah, no,
keep innovating, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I talk to both of them pretty regularly, and they seem to. The thing with Kickstarter is that they're such a big company and they have all these divisions. And BackerKit, although also very big, it's very easy to get in touch with the people who are making the decisions. we've had them change things literally in their code because of things we like recommend. So I don't think Kickstarter's ever done that for us, but BackerKit's done that for us more than once. We'll say, hey, you should do this. They're like, okay, and then they do it. It's like, oh, they're very responsive, very very easy to work with because I think they're always trying to improve upon their platform. So. But
now they have the biggest crowdfunding thing of all time with Brandon's book. So,
yeah, he was smart. He lucked out with that one. Did you?
Was it luck or was it skill?
It was skill.
The,
it was skill.
The people at Backer Kid who got friendly with the people from Brandon's side, and then they made the deal.
That is exactly what happened, because I was asking him how he did it, and the guy who works at Backer Kid, who's in charge of all this, lives in Salt Lake City. And that's where Brandon lives. And he went to...
it's gotta be nice.
Yeah. So what ended up happening is Brandon Sanderson, he basically, to fulfill his Kickstarter, built a warehouse and built a town. Okay. He built a warehouse in a town and hired like 1,000 people. Because how else are you gonna fulfill this on time? Okay. It sounds easy until it's like, do you know how hard it is to fulfill like 40,000 Kickstarter on time?
Hired 1,000 people? How do you make a profit if you have to hire 1,000 people just to fulfill it?
Well, who said they were full time? And B,
yeah, I guess that's fair. But
and B, Utah. Anyhow, he went to go pack books there and became friendly with their staff and met Brandon, and then convinced them to move to Backer Kid. That's how he did it, and that's the rest is history. Yeah, look it up. They basically built a little community. Okay, we'll call it a community rather than a town, but they built a very strong community they had to get everyone. Okay, it's a monumental task to ship that many products.
$12 million Kickstarter is nuts when it's all books and packages.
Oh, it was books and T-shirts. Do you know how hard it is to do T-shirts? It is insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. Okay,
I had to take him to shows. I don't do it anymore.
Yeah. You don't do T-shirts.
I mean, look, he's wearing a Hit Point Press T-shirt.
No.
Steven.
I'm talking about for a Kickstarter. You don't do it because then you have sizes, okay, and colors. Don't do it. It is a nightmare. Okay, he did some of the hardest things you could ever do at a Kickstarter. It was all on time. I still can't even believe it. Like, the coordination is stunning. And yes, you're like, oh, it was $8 million. Just fulfillment was a couple million. Okay, it's not like he didn't get to keep that all. It's like, okay, you got $8 million, great. Good luck fulfilling it. Everyone I was talking to said they would never fulfill it on time. Not only did he fulfill it on time, now he's got even a bigger one coming. So I was like, damn.
With more stuff and plushies. Plushies are so nuts.
Well, once he gets an operation going, once you get it going, it's not so bad because then you can just keep going. And as I said, he built like a whole infrastructure to do this. So now I expect he'll do this like every year because it's like, okay, he's got everyone there. He's got the little army of people. I believe you could just go. You can volunteer or get the part-time job stuffing. He literally was stuffing boxes. The guy from Kickstarter, and that's how he just went stuff boxes so he can meet Brandon and got him to move over. So there you go. So I guess Kickstarter's going to end up at the warehouse next time, and then we're like, all right, got to send whole people over to Salt Lake City, start stuffing boxes so we can get them to come back. So we'll see. So, all right. More than 2 hours now. We're 2 hours 15 minutes, but I gotta go because I got stuff to do. But where are you going to be next, Brian? What's the next convention?
Canada Plays in Niagara, which is like it's a business-to-business event. But the next one, customer-facing, will be Gen Con probably in August. Unless, again, like I said, unless the MagicCon things happen. But the next big one's going to be Gen Con. So if any of your listeners are there and want to stop by and say hi, please do. I love talking to people. That's why I love doing the conventions. So, and you said you'll be at Gen Con too, right? So,
oh yeah,
to see you there in person, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
But I love Gen Con. Gen Con's my forever show because I've been going to that since 2005.
Oh yeah, that's like my. When I went there, I called it heaven on earth. I was like, this is my favorite place. I love it. I love Gen Con. That's kind of why I don't have a booth. Because I don't want to work the booth. I want to hang out and like talk and just do stuff. I might share a booth, or last year we were in the Paizo booth. So we might do that again this year. So it's the best of both worlds. You can find our stuff, but I don't have to man the booth. So there you go. So we'll probably do that again this year. But one year I'm going to break down and just have to get a booth. Well, now we have enough products to have a booth. So I'll end up doing
That's where you
it.
just hire somebody to run the booth for you.
That is the other thing you can do. It gets very expensive, and then it's not worth it. It's sort of catch-22, because if you hire people to run the booth, you don't make probably any money, or you break even at best.
It depends. We do pretty well.
Oh, really?
So like part of my original job with Hit Point before I did art direction was to run the booths. Just because I was in the States, so I just was doing that, and so but yeah, so that's what Rico hired me for, was to take everything to the show, set up the booth, run the convention, and then take everything back to storage.
Huh. And maybe I will talk to you. Maybe you know people. It's to help run the booth. Yeah, I wouldn't mind.
The expensive part is getting the stuff there. As long as you can figure that out.
That I can do. That I have.
Booth volunteers are usually pretty good.
Yeah. The getting the stuff there isn't too hard, because I have because my warehouse goes to Gen Con. They have a booth, so usually my warehouse has booths at these other conventions, so they can literally just bring it with them. So
that's nice.
Yeah, so it's very easy.
I'm trying to work that out with talking to ours, because right now I drag everything out in a trailer. So I just rent a trailer and I just drive everything out.
So what I'll do is I'll send all my stuff to you, and you can put it in your trailer.
I mean, that's discussable with Rico. Yeah. We've talked about that with other vendors. That's what I do for Alchemy.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Actually, we just got an Alchemy too. We're in the same announcement. He joined. Look at that. We were in the. Did you see? We were in the same.
All about the dragons.
Yeah, we were in the same announcement. But that's getting a little weird, a little incestuous. So, we just got an Alchemy as well. Our dragon book just got an Alchemy, and fusions as well. They're actually a lot of fun to work with. So.
We've been very heavily partnered with Alchemy since they announced their platform. We actually shared a booth at PAX Unplugged in 2019 when they were demoing it. And then we were going to all the same shows. So I just take all their booth stuff for them.
Wow, that's a good idea. Not a bad idea. I'll have to think about that. Well, anyhow, thanks for coming on. And hopefully we didn't bore you too much with our talk of pricing of
we laughed,
New York.
We cried because it's 2 hours and plus goodbye, right?
Yeah. Well, talking about New York pricing for shows. I will say your room is impressive. That is a lot of books. I mean, that is ridiculous.
My friends call it the library. To be fair, that's all art books. These are comic books and graphic novels and world books. That's all fantasy. And like I said, on the opposite side is a calyx with all my gaming books.
Oh, okay.
When I said I have all of the Paizo books, I have all of the Paizo books.
Really?
Yeah. That Paizo published. I have a few of the third party stuff, but first party wise, I've been a subscriber since when it was still under 3.5.
Yeah. Okay.
When they were doing the Sandpoint adventure under 3.5.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I was just like, I loved Wayne Reynolds, who was the cover artist for that, and I was like, yes, I will take all of the things. And then it became its own thing, and so I've just been with it ever since. And now I have all the D&D 5e books because then I was a Pathfinder player, and then now I work for a company that makes 5e stuff. So
you can still play Pathfinder.
Now I own all the 5e. If I can find time for a game.
Well.
Like I said, 2E's on my docket to play. I've been, as a fun project for me, working on converting some of our Humblewood races to 2E. Just as like a fun mental exercise when I'm not working.
That's a tough exercise to go from 5E
the racial feats are super fun.
Yeah,
it was a lot easier.
Fun, though.
It was a lot easier in 1E.
Yeah, that's why we go the other way. We always go from Pathfinder to 5e.
Because nobody in 5e is going to complain about getting a bunch of free feats that are limited to that species, whereas in Pathfinder we'd have to generate the ancestry feats.
Yes, that's what I'm finding out, is that I've had to generate all the ancestry feats based off of, but it's been fun. I've got 2 down.
Nice.
Right, still working my way through. But again, I haven't even played a 2e game yet, so who knows if they're good or not.
Well, compare them to the existing ancestries, and that might help.
That's kind of what I'm doing. Does it just go?
There's also some rules of thumb you can use. For example, if it gives you a spell or something similar to a spell, you can pull out something once per day that's about 2 slots lower than the highest level slot that a caster of that level could cast. So, for instance, at 13, you could get a 7th rank spell on a wizard. So you could give it a once per day 5th level spell, maybe a once per hour 4th level, if it's not like really long, such that it goes past that. And you could also give out multiple spells of a lower level than the maximum. And so using that as a benchmark for frequency-based abilities, it can help.
Noted. I do. That's actually very helpful for me.
Yeah, no worries. I worked on creating the fundamental framework for ancestry, so I have a few tips and tricks.
Yeah,
I may poke you about that.
Yeah, I was saying, I was talking to Rico because I know we wanted to do some Pathfinder stuff, and I'm like, well, I literally have the co-writer, so let us know.
I tried really hard to work with Paizo a few years ago, but they wouldn't approve us putting Pathfinder compatible stamps on our reference cards.
Interesting.
Did they not follow the Pathfinder compatibility license?
So the license says you have to get approval for anything that isn't a PDF or a book.
Oh,
yeah. Cards. Okay. I was like, hey, so I know Jason Bowman has a set of our animated spell cards in his office, and I was talking to Logan Bomber and a bunch of different people, and they were all really cool, but the licensing department was just like, no. And then a few months, like I chased it for like a year and a half, and then like 3 or 4 months later, they announced their 2E spell cards. And I was like, oh, okay.
Well, that makes sense.
But I tried. Like I said, when I came on the company, I was hard Pathfinder, and I tried really hard to get it so that we could like make. And again, reference cards were still a huge part of our business at that point. So when they were like, "No, we can't," their license department didn't want to work with us. We were like, "Okay," or like they wouldn't let us put the Pathfinder compatible stamp on reference cards. So
interesting. All right.
Yeah, I have a whole mess ton of emails between me and their licensing guys. So
fun bit of old school licensing lore.
Yep. Fun times. So yeah, I would love for us to do more Pathfinder stuff but that's part of the reason I've just been converting stuff in my free time.
When you could be playing games.
Most of the time I'm doing that, it's like 2:00 in the morning when nobody else is doing games. So
fair enough.
And converting is fun. Like it's fun to work on.
It's a fun mental exercise, right?
Sure. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, and looking forward to seeing the Floral Dragons and everything else coming out. And if you don't come on again, I'll definitely see you at Gen Con if you're not going to Origins. And maybe you could play a game of Pathfinder there, because we play a little bit of everything when we're at Gen Con.
Gen Con, unfortunately, like I'm at the booth the entire show, and then every night is like Ennies, creator dinners, collaborator meetings. So yeah, Gen Con,
we do the same thing, and then we go play.
I did that. I think I did that 1 year pre-COVID, and I haven't been able to do it since.
Oh, last year we did that. We would go out to dinner, and then we went to go play. One night we played Mothership. One night we played Cobalt Take My Baby. I forgot we played we just get everyone together and just play. And it's not necessarily a 4-hour game. It's just like an hour, maybe an hour, 2.5. Like we just, we play whatever we can, and then we get tired. But it's better than nothing. So.
Yeah, getting what you can. PAX East, I was able to actually game after the show, but that's my least, like, once the show closes, I don't have anything planned shows. So.
There you go. All right.
Back to the Airbnb and playing games with other booth volunteers.
There you go. All right.
Okay. All right.
Well, thanks so
much. Shall I do the thing, Steven?
Sure, do the thing.
All right. Until next time, if you want to battle the zoo, you have to roll for combat.
Bye.